of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the Village of Southampton, Thursday, December 17th. We're going to start with 5 written decisions. The first written decision is case number 3076, 950 Meadow Lane. Do I have an motion to accept that decision as written?
I move we accept this decision as written.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. So that's unanimous to accept the decision in case number 3076. Moving on to case number 3083, Donna Zilka. Do I have a motion to accept that decision as written?
I move we accept this decision as written.
All in favor?
I'll second.
All in favor of accepting the decision as written?
Aye. Aye.
So that is also unanimous to approve the decision as written in case number 3083, Donna Zilka. We are not ready to decide on case number 3087, 71 Walnut Street. And Kevin, can you take care of case number 3088, Akiva Goldsman, 1431 Meadow Lane, a case from which I am recused?
Yes, I can. That's the walkway going over the wetlands into the.
Yes, that's correct, Kevin. That's the Dove Lagoon.
Right. Are we all set to approve this one?
Yes, I move that we approve the application of Akiva Goldsman, 1431 Meadow Lane, number 3088.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approve 4-0.
So moving on to pending cases, the first pending case for our attention this evening is case number 3089, 66 Meadowmere Lane, Meadowmere Partners LLC. Is there anybody here from the applicant who wants to be heard?
Please raise your hand if you're here for the application for 66 Meadowmere Lane. No one's raising their hand right now.
So Chick, do you want to bring us up to date? I believe you're looking for more information from the applicant.
Sure.
Hi, excuse me. Sorry, I'm here for 60. I'm here to observe 66 660 Meadow Lane. Or sorry, I'm here for a different application. I realize.
That's different, yeah.
Sorry.
It does have,
Joe-
it does
Jolie,
have
if you
6s
could,
in it, though.
If you
Yeah,
can
so-
remove Martha from this meeting, I believe Martha, and then just raise your hand when it
I'll-
comes to 3 to 4 Fountains.
All right,
Yes.
great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll see you later.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, just to brief you on this, this is the ditch that extends along the west side of the Mortimer property up to Meadowmere Lane. And it is basically infested with Phragmites and Japanese knotweed. We did approve a permit just to the west of this, and this particular application is on a property that has been restored in large part. And this is an area that, as I said, is infested with invasives. The intent here is to clean out the ditch so that water can flow through it as it has for many years, and to restore native vegetation as much as possible through a long-term program of cutting and removing rhizomes and planting native vegetation. So we did ask for more information, mostly regarding construction, the configuration of the ditch, the amount of material that may need to be removed, and a number of factors. We did receive a letter from the applicant dated December 2nd, and that has addressed all of the questions and comments that I had from a written memo. They actually outlined each comment, provided a response, and provided supplemental plans and sheets. And I am satisfied that it will achieve the intent to clean the ditch. There will not be any disturbance on the neighboring property to the west. They will install silt protection at the southern end of the ditch so that we don't have runoff or siltation to the pond to the south, to Halsey Neck Pond. And ultimately, as I've said from the beginning, it's a beneficial project to remove invasive species. So I have no further questions. That's a summary of the project. I do have plans if you would like to see them. And I'm happy to hear if the board has any questions. Apparently, no one is here for the applicant, but the material that was requested has been submitted. That's my summary.
You had been concerned about the construction methodology, but you've received what you need with respect to the methodology?
Yes, there's not an excessive amount of fill to be removed. The ditch already exists, so it's really just kind of fine tuning the configuration of it. They will access it from the east side. They will move the material to the north. As I said, it's not an excessive quantity, and it'll be taken to an off-site suitable location for disposal. So that is correct. I have no further questions.
Do any members of the board have any questions?
I thought our discussion at the work session was pretty good, and I actually think it's fine. But it seemed like a very organized way to take care of the situation, and that every Chick's questions had been answered. So I think it's fine.
Fine with me.
Fine with me.
Julia, do you have any questions?
Nope, not at this time.
Can I have a motion to
A long
close?
way since the initial application. They provided 2 rounds of additional information for our review. They're also close to getting the state permit, so I'm quite comfortable with this at this time.
Can I have a motion to close case number 3089, Meadowmere Partners, 66 Meadowmere Lane for all purposes?
I move we close case number 3089 for all purposes.
I second the motion.
And all in favor?
Aye.
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 And aye. So that's unanimous to close for all purposes, case number 3089, Meadowmere Partners, 66 Meadowmere Lane. And we'll move on to case number 3085, 131 Flying Point Road.
Mark, could I just interrupt real
Of
quick?
course, sir.
Would you be able to give me direction to prepare the permit for the January meeting?
Oh, certainly. How does the board want to vote on case number 3089? Are
Aye.
you all-
I'm in favor.
So am I.
Me too.
Me too.
Julie, so that's unanimous. Is that good direction for you, Chick?
That's what I was looking for, and I appreciate it. I like to have confirmation, but thank you very much.
Sure. Okay, so case number 3085, 131 Flying Point Road. Is there anybody here for the applicant?
Yes, Robert Fischetti, attorney for the applicant. If I could ask you to also let in the architects, Highland Hall and Brett Rothamel.
Yeah, I'll bring them in. Go ahead.
So they'll be joining us, and where we had left off at the last meeting, in response to the last meeting, we the architects had looked at the amount of relief requested, and we didn't quite make the work session deadline, but we did submit some sketches and then followed up with some plans for this meeting. We did make the deadline, submitting revised plans for a request of 65 feet instead of 60 that we had previously requested. The sketches support that. It really shows how they sort of pick this apart room by room to try to minimize the relief requested as much as possible. I think they'll be able to walk you through those sketches So I'd like to just jump right into that. I see they've joined the meeting. So if I could hand it off to you, gentlemen.
And just for the record, Rob, I think the initial request was 59.5 feet.
Apologies, yes, 59.5.
And the current request is 65.5 feet.
I believe, Brett, is it 65.5 or 65?
65 is what was requested.
I see on the survey shows proposed front yard 65 feet.
Okay,
There's some measurements as 65.5, but I think the ultimate request is 65. But gentlemen, if you could explain to the board how you, starting from the last time we were in front of the board, how you, relooked at the house and tried to squeeze this into, as little relief as you could.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First, I hope to wish you a happy Hanukkah and a very Merry Christmas. It's a pleasure to be before you again this evening. I'm assuming I'm still under oath, so I will proceed. The diagrams you're looking at, which consist of the first part of that, is D1. This is an example of what occurs when a garage is inserted into a structure and the amount of area that's actually left for the residents. But that's as simple as I would like to go with that. That whole front would be at 60 feet. And you can see that the amount of available interior space is really not acceptable to really sort of create a well-defined building. Document D2 exhibits the aspect of how to insert a building on the right side and the impact that it has on that same sort of footprint. And by the way, the garage, in my opinion, we're trying to minimize the length of the garage at 22 feet. That's about as minimum as you go. I normally like to make them 24 feet, but in this case, we've tried to foreshorten that so we are not overly impinging on the front yard setback. But that sort of layout shows the idea of what occurs with what happens when the garage is extended off the right side, allowing for enough space between living room, foyer, study, and an appendage off the left side. These are very diagrammatic designs intended to show the impact of the presentation of a garage off the right side of the road. Diagram 3 shows our attempt at sort of showing you a design that would work in that configuration. And that goes to the intent of the architecture in itself, because when you have a volume that protrudes from a side of a building, there's literally only two ways to handle that. One, that it's an appendage on the building, much like a classic colonial with a hyphenated connection, and then the garage to the left of it. But given the concerns about the overall width of the site and the allowances, I prefer to make the garage part of the composition of the intent of the entire facade of the building. And that's a trick in itself, and in order to make it a sensible and logical building presentation and elegant at the same time. Diagram 4 represents the idea of what I call a main block building, using the appendage of the garage as not a specific appendage, but part of the composition of the front of a building that can look elegant and can look appropriate for a condensed site. So this is sort of put forth to you to represent the idea of the composition of the garage protruding on one side, on the left side, and then a balanced facade of another projection on the right side of the building. So that in itself is the architectural argument to allow us that additional 15 feet of encroachment on the front yard on the western side. What is that?
Downs back.
Downs on Downs Path in order to create and granted, this is a symmetrical composition. So the idea of being able to do that with the appendage of a 25-foot structure on the left side housing the garage and balanced out by another projection on the right side allows for a very handsome and appropriate condition facing Flying Point Road. So we try to explain those in the previous documents of what's occurring on this site, and the previously submitted architectural plans sort of show it as an appendage. You know, that's not one of my favorite things to do. In general, when you're trying to create an elegant building for a condensed site at the frontal exposure to a primary road, I think the building should look elegant and persuasive in its intent to create a balanced facade. You know, I've been asked to present this to you from an architectural design standpoint by showing you what happens when you try to compress the garage into a main structure, and then attempting to resolve it in the ladder diagrams and the design to allow us to be able to request from you that additional 15 feet to create this kind of structure. So those are our intents, and I hope that it makes sense to you, and I hope it sort of allows you to be able to perceive the difficulties in trying to create a building that, and a home that is well represented to the frontal on Flying Point Road. It's my best attempt in trying to do this, because the first thing you have to work with as an architect is that projection of the garage at 22 feet in order to make a composition out of the whole, as opposed to leaving it as an appendage. So this is our attempt at solving that solution and developing a building that I think is appropriate for that location. So into the lesson, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not sure what else I can have you, but I'd be delighted to respond to some questions that you have or some concerns that you have about this.
Do any board members have any questions?
Yeah, I have one. Now we're asking for 65 feet from Downs Path. What were you asking for before?
20 feet.
We were asking for 20 feet, Kevin.
We were proposing a setback of 59.5, and now we're proposing 65.
65, right. So you've gone up by 5 feet. Right.
Yes, correct.
Okay. I mean, that's a step in the right direction.
Do any other board members have questions?
Well, in looking at the actual plans for the house, you know, a lot of the rooms are pretty big. I mean, 22 feet, 19 feet, the great 22 by 14, 25 by 19.5. I mean, there might be a way to not have so many big, there might be a way to make it less. I'm not saying they should do that, but it's very generous in terms of the room sizes in this. No, those are big rooms. It seems to me, I don't know, but I mean, I don't think it's impossible to take a little off, but maybe I don't know what to think. I'm not saying yay or nay on that, but I did notice that in the span across the front, that what's called the office bedroom is 22 feet by 14.6. And the great room, well, that's the real, that sticks out, so that makes it longer. The actual
Well-
facade,
Susan, could I respond to that for you?
absolutely.
Yeah, from an architectural standpoint, that's what I was trying to convey, that you can see the garage on the left side. And allowing for, a 22 foot deep, and actually 21 feet on the interior, but able to balance the facade, as I would prefer to do. You must have a similar type form on the right side of the building in order to create in this case, a symmetrical facade. So it's not as though we can't pull the office and the garage back a little bit, but it's really the overall length of the building. And we also, because of compositional issues and coverage issues, kind of eliminated part of that. But once you take away that aspect of the garage,
Right, I understand that you want symmetry from the two sides, but
right?
I mean, I feel like you're conditioning this on what you must do. And the fact of the matter is, I'm not sure what you must do, but you might be able to fit it in better. I'm not saying I'm opposed to this, but I don't think it's a given that it's impossible. That's what we've been saying over and over again. You have a blank, we're willing to concede to you some kind of a variance because it's an awkward lot. I will
Agreed.
agree with that. But then we have to ask how much, and I don't know. I'd be interested what other board members had to say.
If I could just speak to that, the size of the house, Highland, is this, I lost the size, about 5,500 or 6,000 square feet.
Correct, yeah.
Fairly modest for, and the lot is 1.7. I mean, I don't have, statistics at the tip of my fingers, but I think in that neighborhood, I mean, that's a fairly modest size house for the lot. And, as we've sort of all acknowledged in the past, you can always build smaller, but there is some sort of barometer for each lot where an owner owes it to themselves to not underbuild. I think this is not when you just look at the size of the house, it's not, they're not shooting for the moon as far as that goes, and they're just trying to find a way to balance the size that they are shooting for, which again is modest with the look on the front and these awkward features. But
Rob, what's the width of the house?
75 feet.
75 feet. Yep.
And without the garage, is it 60?
No, it would be.
So you're taking 22 off that.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is 60, and then it's 22, right?
Yeah, so it'd be 60.
No, it's not 60 without the garage.
Oh, without the garage. Well, 75 with, and then you got to go 21. So it would be a little bit less. Okay.
Hold on, guys.
So it'd be 75 minus 22. So 53 is the core? 75, yes. Oh, no.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's about 53.
Dan, what do you
22
think?
is 22 is the smallest you really can go with a garage. If you go less than that, you can't walk around the car or get anything out of the trunk. You're too tight.
I want to mention that the relief overall is 18% of the required setback, which I think,
Let's talk about the garage.
What's that?
I believe there was a decision in front of the board just last time where I think it was under 20% was perceived as being not substantial. I think they've done a good job of trying to, squeeze things down. They did look at, I know a lower number was mentioned last time. They did take that to heart and look at it, and that was sort of their initial directive, but they came back at 15 as really what they felt the balancing of the whole house really was the minimum that they could make sense of.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I'd just like to mention that each application is individual, so that something that happens somewhere else, some in Southampton, doesn't really sway me.
Dan, do you have any questions? Dan?
What is from the curb of the road to the actual property line of the house, of the property, of the actual property is what? Because usually there's like 10 or 15 feet of village property there. Do you know what that is?
We're looking into the site plan now, so give us a moment. Robert, do you have that in front of you?
I have the site plan. I don't know that the surveyor gives an exact distance for that. It's a pretty good distance.
118 feet.
No, it's like 18 feet. That's the rule, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's probably about that, given the.
So you're gonna have 65 feet plus that 18 feet before you get to the curve of the road. So in the net effect, it's gonna read more than 80 feet from the street line.
And the neighbor across from there has given
So
his consent as well.
They're talking about this over here.
They're saying it's an 18-foot minimum buffer.
Right.
Add that to the 65.
What did you just say, Kevin?
I said they can add that to the 65 as far as the distance from the street.
Right.
Distance from the property line is still 65, but the other 18 that the village owns is, 83. I think they've made an effort here to reduce the amount that they needed. It is a narrow lot, it's quite deep from Flying Point Road, but it's not too deep Downs Path.
And I don't think it's an especially wide house. I mean, I think it's a, somewhat reasonable house width.
Yeah. In that neighborhood, you aren't going to build a house with 2,000 square feet.
Of course.
No one's asking them to.
No. I know.
I would say that behind the house is the playing field, which, makes it a special circumstance, by the way.
Yes, you're right.
Are there any other?
Julia, do you have any questions?
No, I've been wondering about the tennis court and whether or not that will stay intact. That's the only question I have.
Yes, that is intended to remain.
Okay. Good. My impression has always been that that has been part of what has led to the request for the variances. So I've been just waiting until that came up.
Yes, it pushes everything up towards the front, yes.
Yeah,
Is the tennis court a sunken tennis court?
no.
I don't believe so.
It's 94 feet from the line, though.
Well, how does that work when you knock everything down except the tennis court? Does anybody know?
Well,
Dan?
the question I have, and David, maybe you can weigh in, would we be able to condition any decision upon, first, of course, the landscaping around the perimeter shown on the survey, the 12 to 14 foot trees, but also on sinking the tennis court, or is it already a village regulation that the tennis court would need to be sunken like all other tennis courts in the village?
Well, it's a legally existing tennis court that they're not proposing to remove or modify. So as it is, I don't believe that this board would have or the village to tell them they have to sink it in order to grant this
Yeah,
variance.
There's no nexus between that condition and this request.
The tennis court backs up to the ball field.
Yeah,
Right, but it is the tennis court that seems to have created the need for the variance.
Well, it pushes the house.
Right, but
Right.
if I may, the sinking the tennis court doesn't lessen or mitigate the relief of the house to the street. That's the condition that, if you're putting a condition on, that's what it needs to be addressing, not just the location of the tennis court. So when it comes to the landscaping, yes, that is direct mitigation for the relief that's being granted. It's related to the relief being requested. Whereas sinking the tennis court does not mitigate in any way the relief that's requested for the house. Yes, it is related because the house is being put in that location because they're keeping the tennis court, but
Right.
it is not tied to any sort of mitigation to justify that variance.
Understood.
so could I just, if they rebuild the tennis court, is that, and do not sink it? I know it's pre-existing non-conforming, but where's the
Wait a minute. Where is it?
argument? If it's rebuilt,
I'm not sure it's
Without-
intended to be rebuilt. I think it's just going to stay status quo.
I'm asking.
Oh, I apologize, sorry.
That would be up to the building inspector. I don't know what level, if they redo a certain amount of it, if they're gonna have to sink it, or if, as long as they reconstruct it in kind and place, that they could leave it there. But that's not up to us, it's up to the building inspector.
Really?
How is the tennis court non-conforming?
I
'Cause
don't
it's
know
not
that it is
sunken.
non-conforming, but it is driving the variance request,
Yeah,
has always been my impression of it.
Susan just said it was non-conforming. It's
Oh,
not-
my apologies. I thought it was non-conforming to the rear yard setback, but it may not be.
It meets the 30.
Under our zoning code, it's a pool is, a tennis court is now sunken on, if they have to build one,
Well,
correct?
so, yes,
Right.
it's non-conforming to the requirement of being sunken.
Aside from that, it's not non-conforming because it meets all the setbacks.
Okay, my apologies.
You're forgiven.
So Rob, where do you want to leave this? Do you want to adjourn it for all purposes, or do you want to make a motion? Do you want us to close it for decision? What's your
I mean, I
desire?
guess I'm just trying to get an idea of the consensus of the board. I think this is our best effort, but certainly we'd like to know if where we're headed as far as.
We'll find that out at the work session. So why don't you leave it open for all purposes?
And then you'll discuss at the work session, and would you close it then for a decision?
No, you would. No, we wouldn't close it. We would have another meeting, and then you can close it.
Another hearing.
Yeah.
You want
I
to
mean,
close it. Close it for decision.
I mean, unless is there anything that would be discussed at the work session that we can't can't cover now?
Yeah, I mean, we just need an opportunity to discuss amongst ourselves. I think the question now is whether there are any additional documents that any board members might need to make a decision. And I'm not sure there are or aren't. And that's the question I can ask the board members. Is there any additional information that you would like the applicant to provide?
I'm happy with it the way it is.
I'm pretty comfortable where we are right now.
Okay, so Rob, it's up to you. I mean, we won't need any additional documentation, but I can't tell you what the decision is going to be before we have a chance in our work session to discuss it fully. Up to you.
Well, I mean, I know, time is definitely a large factor for my client. So I think we would like to, to close it for your vote. Yes.
Okay. Can I have a motion then to close this matter for decision for all purposes?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Thank you,
Thank you
Rob.
very much.
David, what's the next item on our agenda?
I've got 3093 Peter Zakat,
That's right.
56 Halsey.
56 Halsey Neck Lane. Is there anybody here for the applicant?
Yes, one moment. Lisa Zaloga and Peter Zakats are present.
You're on, Lisa.
I'm ready.
Do you want to wait for Peter, or we don't know if we have Peter?
Peter's on. He's just muted. He needs to unmute himself.
Yeah, how do I do that?
Okay.
You did
Okay.
it.
I was going to share my screen if that was okay with everyone.
That would be great.
So you guys will remember that we were in front of you last month asking for a front yard variance as well as some pyramid relief. And at the last meeting, Danny had a good idea of actually pushing the house a little closer to the south property line. And I submitted some drawings to you that showed that that actually allowed us to, by doing that, by moving it 2 feet further south, it actually allowed us to reduce our overall request for the pyramid law variance. So our total reduction in cubic footage went down 458 cubic feet of relief. So we're currently at 2579.9. We also were requesting the 65.3 foot front yard variance, which, as we talked about, the existing house is currently set at 50.3 feet off of the street. And our proposed house is 65.3 feet, which is just shy of 15 feet less than the required of 80 feet. Keeping in mind that this lot is severely undersized for R80. And if we were to go by our lot size zoning, our setback would actually only be 30 feet. So those are the modifications that we've made. I did watch the work session, as Peter did also. And I know that Mark has had some concerns about the neighbors and their setback off of the street versus our setback off of the street. And I just wanted to say a couple of things regarding that. The first thing is that the actual majority of the house is set back at 70 feet, Mark. The this little one portion here, which is only about 15 feet wide, and about the ridge is 26 feet tall. Oops, wrong elevation. This little portion here is the only portion that's actually set at the 65 feet. The porch is 5 feet deep. So this wall, the taller portion, the part of the house that's actually 30 feet tall, is all actually set back at 70 feet already. As is this wall here below the porch. So it's really just this 15-foot wide section that's set at 65 feet. And again, it does have a much larger impact on the rear yard, I think, than it does on whether it's noticeable as you're driving down Halsey Neck Lane. And then, of course, we can also talk about the fact that the right of way to the street is about 10 feet past the property line as well. So, you know, I understand you're trying to get us, you know, as close to the conforming zoning as possible, but that really impacts Peter, and I think you wanted to say something about that. Peter, did you want to say?
Board Chairman, board members, I also want to thank you guys for your hard work that you do for the village. Having watched a few of these, it's definitely a lot of work and a lot of time. So I just wanted the board to consider that 5 feet doesn't seem like much, that Mark suggested that we move further back. But for us as a family, 5 feet back, if you multiply that by the 70-foot width, is 300 square feet of sort of lost space that we would lose. And that's a pretty significant number. I think Lisa makes a lot of good points with the porch being set back and so forth. So I'd just like the board to consider that. I mean, it would definitely squeeze the back and the useful portion of the lot considerably. And I don't think it would really make that big of a visual difference on a lot that's 70 feet wide in the front for people passing by.
How large is the deck in the back?
This covered deck here?
I don't know where you're.
I think is it 12 or 15, Lisa?
Yeah, 15 feet in depth.
I mean, the reason why I proposed the 70-foot setback, Lisa and Peters, is because when you look at your neighbors, most of those houses have their pool not running east-west the way your preference is. They run it north-south, so as to increase the size of their backyard. So relative to your neighbors, you're asking for the pool to run in a different direction, and you're asking for a 2-car garage in the back. It's possible 1-car garage would do just fine. I don't know if it's,
Well, I'm not saying that those aren't all doable and wouldn't fit even as they are, and the setting of the pool, it would just decrease the space between the porch and the pool. So it's not a huge deal, and aesthetically, I think everyone would agree that the pool looks much better the way it is and would be more useful for us the way it is. So,
I don't agree that it would look better. I'm just saying.
well, that's subjective, I guess. But
That's right. That's my subjective comment.
I mean, I guess the concern is when you're looking at this variance request, we like to see a characteristic of the property that requires a variance. The pyramid law relief is in the right area because you have a narrow lot. So it is challenging with a 70-foot wide lot to comply. But your lot in depth is 250 feet, and that's significant to ask for front yard variance relief. So I'm trying to balance the two and be fair to the neighborhood, the community, taking into account that the other houses are actually further back. But I'm just having a little difficulty, and that's why I asked for the 70-foot, because it's an 80-foot setback. You're putting the pool east-west. You have a 2-car garage. You have a 15-foot deck. I mean, I didn't think it was going to be, that challenging. I mean, I understand what the balancing is. I just thought 70 feet back where 80 feet is required might be acceptable, because the depth of your lot is really not the challenge here. It's the width.
Right. But I don't know if this is out of character to ask at this point from the board, but would something less than 5 feet be acceptable to you, Mark? Like we could meet halfway or do something within...
Sure. I just wanted a little, yes, go ahead, split the difference. I'm not trying to...
Just something so everyone's happy, and I appreciate everything that the board has done and has considered for us. So I'm very appreciative. So we're trying to make this the best and the most aesthetically attractive house for the village. It's obviously going to be a big improvement. I think for everyone concerned and the neighbors. So would something like a 2-foot additional setback be?
Yeah, just split the difference and make it 72.5. And I'm sorry, not 72.5.
Wait.
Split the 5 feet and then Lisa will do the calculation. I just wanted you to make a little bit more of an effort to comply with the front yard setback.
Okay, that's fine with me.
67.5.
67.5.
Okay.
Thank you. So that's fine. I'll have some additional grass to mow in my retirement one day in the back. So what is I'm not really clear on the process of how it moves forward. I realize that one of the prior applicants asked for guidance moving forward. Lisa was at the ARB. What was that 2 nights ago, Lisa?
Yeah, on Monday night.
So that seems to all be fine. What happens at this point?
We determine whether any board members have any more questions or requests for additional documentation. And then you and Lisa can decide whether you want to close the meeting for all purposes. Then we'll talk about it at the work session and determine a board decision as a whole.
I think you need a new site plan that shows the gimme.
Right, I believe we could close it except for written submission so that I'd have a official survey to draft a decision based on.
So we could, in theory, close it now in lieu of an official survey with the agreements that we've made?
I think closed except for written submissions is how you do it. I don't know.
Yes,
Right,
exactly.
that would be my recommendation, and that would need to be in before the work session deadline for January.
Which is the 19th.
Is it acceptable for me to ask of what the board members think at this point, whether we're good to go or whether we have to continue?
I think you're good to go.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it where we are now.
Agree.
So look at that, Peter, you have 3 yeses.
Okay, fantastic.
So far.
So far, exactly. So can I have a motion to close case number 309-356 Halsey Neck Lane for only written submission after this point?
So moved.
Second,
Oh, we need to put a date on when that written submission needs to be in.
Before the
I don't know what the date is.
It'll be what, the Thursday before the work session?
Is that enough, David, or do you want a
Yeah, that would be
specific
fine.
date?
That's fine by me.
It'll be the 14th.
So by January 14th, Lisa.
So moved as long as the written decision is in by January 14th.
The written materials, yep.
Written materials are in by January 14th.
Right.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. So we're moving on to case number 3094, 980 Meadow Lane. Is there anybody for the applicant here?
Yes, one moment.
Okay. Hi, it's Gil Flanagan. We have Lisa Poyer here.
Good evening.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, just before we get into this discussion, I noticed that with the decision cases, you kept open or didn't make a decision on 71 Walnut Street, and I wanted to confirm whether or not that matter is being reopened, which I requested before the work session, because we would like to submit additional information. And as you know, reopening at the request of the applicant is generally something this board routinely considers.
Yeah, we were going to discuss it at the work session to decide whether to reopen it rather than the public meeting. That's why we didn't bring this up at this point.
Okay, so is there anything else you need from me in order to achieve whatever it is you need to know?
Don't we have to, we'd like to
Yeah.
wait till the work session, I believe, Gil. Is that
Oh,
what-
you're gonna vote whether or not to reopen it at the work
That's
session?
correct.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure what the procedure was. Okay, that having been said, I'd just like to remind you on this application, which was heard at the last instance, I believe there was only one question of substance which Mr. Voorhees raised, and it had to do with whether or not we could reduce the impact of the driveway as it passes through the 125-foot wetland setback. If you review the submissions we made before the last work session, I believe we were able to achieve that. We actually reduced the square footage of the driveway considerably, and we also increased the setback of the driveway from the wetlands located to the east. So the net result that we came up with now is a reduction within the 125-foot setback of 54.6% over what the existing driveway has, and we increased the setback of the driveway from the wetlands as well. One of the good results of this is that since we've reduced those dimensions, we now have 489 square feet more of wetlands buffer within the 125-foot setback. So I think that that's really all you needed for this application. Again, it bears repeating that all of the construction that's being taken place in this project meets the 150-foot setback. And so we'd be happy to answer any questions. When I did watch the work session, it appeared that Mr. Voorhees seemed to be comfortable with that change to the plans. Lisa and I are both here if there are any questions you might have.
Chick, do you have any questions?
I don't. I can very quickly just share my screen, which will show what Mr. Flanagan was referring to. This is the site. There's an existing residence on the property. The white dashed lines are a fairly large driveway that's close to wetlands to the northeast. And the project is basically meeting all of the setbacks. This is the 125-foot landscape setback, and the 150-foot building setback is here. And at the last meeting, this yellow dotted line, dashed line, was the previous driveway. We did request them to move it a little bit farther west to get it away from this wetland, and also to have this Y branch off a little farther to the south, so there was less driveway area within the buffer. This is the plan that shows that comparison and how that was done. And they have also specified that the driveway would be permeable material. So those were the only items that I believe came up at the last meeting. We did receive the resubmission. It seems to be responsive, and I have no further questions.
Do any other board members have questions?
No, I think this looks pretty reasonable, actually. I'm surprised.
Fine with it.
No questions.
Julia, do you have any questions? Julia, are you there?
Sorry, I had you on mute. I have no additional questions.
Okay. Gil, do you want us to close this for all purposes?
I would appreciate that. That would be very good. Thank you.
So can I have a motion to close case number 3094980 Meadow Lane for all purposes for written decision?
So moved.
I'll second.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
So we're on to new cases. I have as the first new case, case number 3097 for Fountain.
Mark, just on 980 Meadow, is that
Sorry.
right? Permitting at the January meeting at this time, or is there any reason to not prepare the necessary permit for that meeting?
Does any board member see any reason not to have Chick prepare the permit for the next meeting for case number 3094 980 Meadow Lane?
No, you should do it.
We closed. That means you're ready for a decision.
Yeah, I think you want to know if it's a positive decision. It is in my
Yeah.
in my case.
Me too, Susan.
Affirmative.
Affirmative.
Same.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so for new cases, I have case number 3097, Four Fountains, 660 Halsey Neck Lane is the first new case. Is there anybody here for the applicant?
Yes. Gilbert Flanagan and Alexis Stanhope. And Edmund Hollander as well.
Can you hear me? I guess I was muted. I apologize for that. Just for the record, we did submit an affidavit of posting and an affidavit of mailing, which you should have for the file to confer jurisdiction. I want to make sure that you have those.
I do not have those. I know they're submitted to Jackie. We did hear from the neighbor M from their council, actually. MPPR, the owner of Meadowmere Place. And they say they had not received written notice. I just didn't know if you had that in front of you, you could confirm that that was one of the mailings that was sent.
Check. Bear with me a second. We sent the notice to everybody who was on the list. What was the name of that?
MPPR.
Yeah, I look at the very first one I opened. MPPR and company care of Klaus Mahler. Yep, we did.
Okay.
Sent on December 4.
Thank you.
Okay, just to start off on this is a new application, and I understand there's some question and interest in discussion about it. What we plan to do this evening is basically to outline what the application is all about, to take the positions that we think are relevant, and then to find out what the board and any members of the public might have in terms of comments, and then be prepared at the next meeting to submit an orderly and responsive response to those comments. So with that having been said, I'd like to just briefly touch on my part of the application, most of which will be devoted to the zoning issue, and then we will go to the wetland special permit issue, which will be largely the province of Melissa Dedovich and Ed Hollander. So if I may do that, I will just briefly talk about the variances, which, as you note, are in two parts. And the first has to do with the tennis court. We had filed a request for an interpretation or the alternative variances necessary to construct the proposed tennis court as shown on the site plans. I say an interpretation because of a fairly recent change in the village code, which stipulates that when one has waterfront property, one may be able to locate an accessory structure in the front yard so long as the front yard setback is met. Now, I can tell you as a matter of historical relevance, perhaps, that in the past, the Board of Appeals has considered direct requests for interpretation of the code without requiring input from the building inspector. But I also understand that in this case, that opinion from the building inspector was sought, and that in a very brief statement, it's his opinion that this project does not qualify for that relief. And I have a couple of things to say about that. One of which being, as you probably know, there is no definition in the code of what waterfront or a waterfront lot is. Now, there have been some statements made, I think, and opinions by the neighbors and other commentary that this is a man-made pond. Well, in fact, historical evidence shows that at one point this pond was connected to the larger pond located to the east of it. And apparently what happened at some time in the past was that someone raised the grade between this property and the adjacent property to the east, which effectively cut the pond off from its the majority of its water source. But nonetheless, it's still there. It's not lined. It's regulated by the DEC. So our belief and firm position is that it is waterfront. There's nothing that says that waterfront has to be a bay, the ocean, a creek. We believe that it is waterfront, and therefore we would be entitled to have the tennis court as a matter of right. And I would ask you to consider that. We can, at the next meeting, submit some further documentation on the history of the pond itself, which I think will help to support that position. It's important to note that the tennis court itself is set back substantially further from Meadow Lane than, from Halsey Neck Lane than required. And it also meets the setback, the minimum setback from Meadowmere Place, which is under the village code, a non-access private road relative to this property, as evidenced by a letter we submitted from a title company with part of our application. Now, as you may know, that a non-access private road requires a side yard setback plus an additional 10 feet, and that it can be located, an accessory building can be located in that non-access front yard, which this proposal observes. As far as Mr. Talbot's determination is concerned, I would submit that he really doesn't give any reasons why he thinks that it's not a waterfront lot, and I would ask you to consider that.
If you'd like to file an appeal of Mr. Talbot's determination, I'm sure we can get that put in as well. But as of right now, that is the determination of the chief building inspector.
Right.
And as of right now, it has not been appealed. So if you'd like to file that, please, you're within your right.
Right. And since we're continuing on with this, that's something we'll certainly discuss. Let me see what else I can say about that particular aspect. I think that it's important to note that the tennis court, as I say, would exceed the required setback from Halsey Neck Lane. It would, as you've heard before, be sunken. It would also be heavily screened. I would defy anyone to even to know that it exists. And of course, it also bears repeating that as far as the neighbors to the north are concerned, this property is separated from those neighbors by the east-west leg of Meadowmere Place, which is the private road. And I think when you consider those factors on the request for a variance, which we ask for in the alternative, and in looking at the balancing test of the benefit to the applicant versus the detriment to the community, I don't see that there is any detriment to the community or the neighborhood whatsoever. So I would ask you to consider that. That's our basic position, and we can flesh that out a little bit more at a subsequent meeting. Now, the second variance that we're requesting, which is an interesting one, I think, is the question of the relief from the requirement that no more than 5% of a structure can have a flat roof. Now, reduce its height by 7 feet. It's important to note that the flat portion of the roof, if you examine the plans prepared by the architects, Peter Penoyer, which we may be able to put up on the screen, that the flat roof portion of the house is actually in the center of the building. So when you view the house from the street or from any of the other angles, it would appear to be a pitched roof house because there's a sloping roof, and then it flattens off, and then it slopes down again. It also bears repeating that the previous house, which was demolished, had a very similar design. It had a flat roof portion in the section, which actually was a greater square footage than what we're proposing to do. That building, which was demolished pursuant to a permit, had 1,429.6 square feet of flat roof section in its central area, as opposed to the 1,373.2 square feet that we are proposing.
Gil,
In fact,
if
yes.
I interrupt you for a second,
Sure.
Stephen from Peter Penoyer's office doesn't have audio, but I believe he is able to share his screen.
That would be good if you could show that. And in fact, part of what we submitted originally was photographs of the former house, which clearly shows this flat roof section, which I just referred to. But if we could have the roof plans of this building shown, that would be helpful. I was hoping we could.
That's what we're planning, yeah.
Okay. And by the way, while Melissa's attempting to achieve that, the percentage of flat roof versus sloping roof on that building was considerably more than the percentage of flat roof that we are proposing. In that case, it was 34.8% of the roof area of the former house as opposed to 16.8% that we're proposing. So if we can have that drawing, I think it would be
I'm
helpful.
sure they're having a problem. For some reason, he can't get onto.
1 second. It's Stephen Aldrich needs to come
Correct.
in.
Yes, that's who it is.
All right, he just raised his hand, so.
Oh, great, thank you.
Okay, good.
I know it's a lot of people.
What I was trying to say in my layman's terms, and God knows I'm not an architect, is that from anyone's perspective, unless you're flying over it in an airplane or in a drone, this building looks like a pitched roof building.
Stephen, if you could show us the roof plan, the existing versus proposed. Do you have the one with the chart on it?
All right, we're going to Braille.
We're getting there. Please bear with us for a minute.
Actually, Stephen, let Alexis share because she can pull up what's on the Dropbox that has the correct plan. Alexis, can you share your screen, please?
Yes, I can.
It would be the Peter Penoyer plan that's in the Dropbox.
This is the Dropbox I have access to. I don't believe those drawings are within here.
Okay, they should be. It was what we submitted to the ZBA. Everything was in the same folder.
It appears we only have the landscape drawings in the package.
Okay, sorry, Gil. We're gonna have to use the one I guess that Stephen had. The one that's shown in the one that you're gonna see that was not the one included in the package that was submitted to the ZBA. So Stephen, you want to share again? And if you could go to the roof plan. So if you look on the left-hand side is the existing roof plan, which Gil, you have that square footage?
Yes, I do. I think I just mentioned it. It was, bear with me a second, 1,429.6 square feet existing, and we're proposing 1,373.2. So we're actually having less flat roof than the previous building did.
Stephen, can you help the board out because, and it's on your printouts that the board members should have in your packages. Stephen, if you could just take your hand and go around the outside and show where exactly where the existing is, right? That was what was original. And then if you could show where the proposed is, it's that little rectangle there, and then that little square there, and then the extent of the ridge line right there.
They say it bears repeating also that the setback of this building from Halsey Neck Lane as proposed is, I believe, in excess of 200 feet. And that there also are in your file perspectives that show what the house would look like when viewed from the street and also from certain other angles. And from my layman's perspective, this looks to me like a pitched roof building. I
And
think
Gil,
when-
they're very large linden trees that are going to be preserved that line the driveway between Halsey Neck Lane and the entry court and in
Correct.
front of the building as well.
Stevie, can you show the bottom pictures and then show the sheet that has the renderings? Actually, if you could show the renderings, just so they can get the perspective from Halsey Neck and.
And part of the reason for designing this the way it is also is to preserve the general spirit of the former development. And that's one of the reasons the two existing buildings are being retained, so as to preserve some of what we consider to be the historical value of this property. And again, I would,
You're not gonna see these flat roofs unless you fly over the house.
that's correct. That's correct. That's exactly it. Standing out at the street or on the property lines, it looks like a pitched roof house.
Mhm.
And I think that's important. And again, we're back to the balancing test. And we've heard that in a number of other cases, but this really is a balancing of the benefit to the applicant versus the detriment to the community. Now, by the way,
Gil, I don't mean to interrupt you or I wanted to have your uninterrupted presentation, but what's the purpose of the flat roof?
Make the building more massive.
No, that's not the
I
purpose.
think what it does is so you can meet your height setback or your height requirement, correct?
right, don't forget this building was going to be provided to be FEMA compliant. And that imposes certain restrictions on us, all of which we're going to honor. In fact,
Gil, sorry, what is the purpose of the flat roof?
I'll defer to the architects on that. So I would invite someone from Peter Penoyer's office to say what the function inside, when you look at the design of it and how the rooms are laid out, what the purpose of it is.
Peter Penoyer is coming in.
Thank you. The purpose of the flat roof is to allow us to meet the height requirement while within the footprint of the house. It's simply impossible to do that, and it's really, we've looked at the sight lines from every angle, and it's literally impossible to see. We feel it's a de minimis, and the part that would be closest to the road, to the street, is actually just a narrow strip at the ridge.
Peter, I'm trying to understand the benefit to the applicant. So go slowly for me. Is it living space? Can you walk on this flat roof? Is it a roof deck?
No, it is not. It is not a roof deck. It is simply the way we deal with roofs to get a reasonable pitch, which is an aesthetic consideration.
What is the pitch of the roof?
I don't have that figure in front of me, but I think we can look at the renderings, and I think you'd agree that it is. There it is. Yeah, it slopes from 712 to 912, and were we to eliminate the flat portion, it would look kind of modern.
You'd end
So,
up like a 312 pitch, which would
yeah,
look
so yeah, it would just look kind of modern. We're trying to make something that is, sympathetic to the roof lines of the existing structures. There are two existing cottages that frame the courtyard. Of course, we're keeping the driveway, all the alley of trees, we're preserving all the stones, the fence, and everything. So we're trying to make it relate to that that vignette that we all have seen and love when you look down that road. I've been by there for years, and so the roof pitch is really about the aesthetics of it.
Excuse me, this is Susan Stevenson. You know, I don't actually understand your argument. Your client demolished the building that you're now saying everyone's sad about. It didn't qualify as historic because it was built in 1930, I believe. And what you're showing us is this small portion of what I consider to be a very large house that your client is building that you've designed. And to make a replica under historic preservation terms is frowned upon. The thing that was knocked down is gone. So if you're making an artistic interpretation of it, that's fine with me, but I don't think it should be considered any more than that and only at the whim of you and your client. I don't think it has any real resonance once you've destroyed the original structure under preservation by the state of New York or under like historic building parameters. So I don't go along with that. And my understanding is that all may be true about height and all these things with FEMA, but when you make a flat roof that's large, it allows much more interior space in a more massive building. This is a 14,000 square foot house. What about the neighbors? I mean, I don't understand the rationale actually, other than that you know, people would like more room. I get that, but I'm not. But that's not the zoning in the village of Southampton, is it?
Can I guess it is actually? Can I just point out that in this zone, we are legally allowed to have an 18,000 square foot house. This house.
I'm not arguing about the size of the house. I'm talking about the roof.
Right, and if you look at the roof and the reduction, if you look at what the original roof for a smaller house had more flat.
I feel that's just this ridiculous argument. The house is gone. What they had before, that was the theater once. That wasn't even a house. That's not, what does that have to do with this house?
What we're trying to say is that I've been out here for many years, my husband's 4th generation. I never even knew this house had a flat roof. I've gone by, I actually lived right next door to this house for a little while. Never knew it had a flat roof. And I think what we're trying to say is that it doesn't read as a flat roof. Well, and the new architecture is similar in that direction.
But the zoning does not, I mean, you want a variance for zoning on this. And I believe that, I don't understand it actually, because the other house looked like that you knocked down. What is the rationale?
Yeah, we can move on. We'll discuss, you know, benefit to the applicant versus detriment to the neighborhood, et cetera. But we're just trying to develop the record right now.
Sure, right. The only thing I'll say on that, and I won't say any more about it, is that flat roof design was part of the neighborhood and part of the character of the neighborhood. So to that extent, I think it's very relevant. And I would ask you to.
We're not the ARB, we're the ZBA.
Well, I think you really shouldn't be mixing the two. I agree with you, but it's part of the character of the neighborhood, and that's one of the things that the zoning standards look at. It's also bears repeating that this piece of property is more than 7 acres and capable of having 2 dwellings, each of which could be massive on it. This is only 1 dwelling located in the center of the property and considerably far away from any other neighbors. But I agree with the chairman. We should probably move on to the rest of the application. Again, as I said at the beginning, we just want to lay out what the issues are and what our position is, and then hear your comments and then come back with responses. I think that having been said, I'll just talk very, very briefly about the wetlands portion of the application, and that mainly will be discussed by Melissa and Ed. I think one of the most important things is that when one looks at impervious surfaces, this project results in a reduction of more than 6,000 square feet of impervious surfaces within the wetlands regulated areas. But perhaps the most significant part of this application, as far as I'm concerned, is the tremendous amount of increase in wetlands buffer and native species that would be planted to take the place of the vast lawn that exists to the rear of the property, to the extent of an additional 59,293 square feet. And I think that's substantial, especially when you take into account the project immediately to the south of this, which this board approved not so long ago. When you marry those two buffers, I think that's huge. And I think it might be good at this point if that could be shown on the screen, and Hollander, I'm sure, could.
Gil, we're going to walk them through all these. It's a lot of information for the board to understand, and to, again, Gil is correct. It's a 7-acre property. It's pre-existing non-conforming. And what I mean by that is that the 3 structures that are to remain are going to remain in their current state. They're legal. Again, they're pre-existing. They were built before zoning was enacted. What we did on this chart is to point out to the board where the jurisdiction level. Alexis, can you make this a little bigger? The challenge with this project was really the existing home had been, was demolished, and that was an agreement that was done by the previous property owner, the Bachmans. Is we have the existing, just stop it, thank you. We have the 2 existing structures that are on either side of the courtyard, and then the other guest cottage that's to the north along Meadowmere Place. So if you look at the building envelope that satisfies the wetlands and zoning, we've kept the existing house within that building envelope. The challenge with a site like this also is it's very low. There's drainage involved, and also maintaining the 200-foot septic setback, which would be the only place available really is over in that corner where we've placed it, up in the northwest corner right there, a little further up right. So we always design from there backwards. So that's where our septic system is. And then we design to where the building envelope is. Now, if you look at everything in light blue, that is existing impervious surface that is to be removed from within the 150-foot jurisdiction. Now, I know some people may say, oh, it's not structured, but actually it's oil and stone. It is impervious.
Okay.
And it also involves, there's a pool house there. There's an existing swimming pool with a surrounding patio. There's more patio. And there's also 2 septic systems that are involved in, with both that 2-story building and the pool house that were within the jurisdiction of wetlands. All those 2 septic systems are to be removed. The pool house is to be removed, the pool to be removed. And then if you also see, what's very interesting is that the majority of this property has been extensively landscaped. Maria Bachman did many garden tours at Four Fountains. There were a lot of charity events here. But there's, if you come to this property, the pond itself, as Gil said, was cut off sometime between 1932 and 1960. It used to be connected to Halsey Neck Pond. Then I guess I think that somebody was building their basement and took the fill and just cut it off. I'm not sure, but one point, all of a sudden, it was filled and cut off. Ever since they did that, it's been artificially maintained. And what I mean by that is that it's not in great condition. It has a fountain that acts like an aerator there. It is bounded by boards on the western side of the shoreline. There was a pipe that was running to it. It has the only, actually the DEC within the last couple of years actually granted a permit to the Bachmans to poison the pond to get rid of an invasive water plant that had been living there. So one of the things that this board has to look at when weighing things is the quality of wetlands. I was laughing because when you approved a decision earlier in the night about a drainage ditch, and the property that was next to that was Gary Garabrandt's property. And the board at that time gave us some relief to those wetlands because they recognized that the wetlands associated with that drainage ditch were not as pristine and as valuable as a wetland associated with like Halsey Neck Pond or Bay. Now, the wetlands that are to the south are formally interconnected, which means that there used to be, well, there is a culvert that runs under Halsey Neck Pond to Taylor's Creek, but from what I've heard, it's collapsed. However, it still, I believe, has a connection to Halsey Neck Pond. So the wetlands to the south are the more, I guess you'd say, higher quality wetlands. If you can see here, there is a substantial amount of existing vegetation. That's a light lavender that's to remain. That's also, I believe, continued onto the property. That's the Meadowmere Place property, the Meadow Lane property that you recently approved. And this just gives you an idea of what we're looking at existing condition wise. You go to the next page, and this shows you, again, we have over in the upper corner, if you could go to the chart, this has a list of, and there's also, I gave you everybody a cheat sheet, a wetland summary, and this shows you the existing structures that are currently within the 150-foot setback and that are proposed. And we have a net reduction of over 51% of coverage within that area. I also would like to tell the board that when we started working on this a year ago, we were taking into account, like I said, the existing historic structures. We thought we had a great plan. And then in September, we spoke with Chick. And Chick was kind enough to look at it. And we had the tennis court in another location. And, you know, Mr. Voorhees was very helpful in giving us some guidance on what you were now looking for. So we really grabbed onto this about the reduction of impervious surface within the 150-foot setback. And if you show the whole plan, I mean, we call out everything. We even count the retaining walls. Now, with regard to the southern fountain that you can see here, if you get a little closer on that, the reason we're asking for that, and it shows up on an aerial that will show, there's actually an existing U-shaped hedgerow and beautiful linden trees, right, Ed, that we want to keep there?
Correct.
And that's one of the reasons why we're even asking for any relief in that area. But I just wanted to point that out to the board. And also on the right-hand side between the house and that little retaining wall, that's actually where we're putting a lot of our drainage because really there's not many places to put appropriate drainage here. If we could go to the next one. And this is a really telling plan. I think this is very helpful. We show the 50-foot offset from the two wetlands involved. And if you add, and I know this board, I've been in front of you guys for 25 years, generally you've been trying to ask for a 50-foot setback or wetlands buffer. So here the dark green is the 50-foot wetlands buffer. And we are asking for minimal relief. And I consider it relief because we're willing to give you a 50-foot buffer. We have no problem with that. We want to protect our wetlands. And the two areas are the one area to the south where we have that existing hedge and the existing linden tree. And the other area is just to walk down to the pond. Now, if you look at all these numbers, the lighter green is the additional total native buffer we'd like to give, which actually, with subtracting the two little areas and adding in the dark green and the lighter green, is 81,401 square feet, which actually is 30,515 square feet higher and larger than if we just gave you the 50-foot buffer. And if we go to, and actually, Alexis, can you show the aerial? So this shows, you know, how we're up, where we're set up. Okay, and now the next one should be our combined buffer plan. And if you get to, and this is really helpful because it shows how the neighborhood is really taking the proactive choice and trying to protect the wetlands. Here you can see the amount of wetlands buffer we're giving as compared to the neighbor. What's also interesting to note is that the neighbor that you just approved, they have wetlands on 4 sides of them pretty much. So, you know, I think this works well to really protect both our southern wetlands as well as the health of Halsey Neck Pond. Again, if you do the quality balancing test, those are the two more high quality bodies of water or wetlands you want to protect. The other
Right, and Melissa, we have lawn right now basically running right down into one of the ponds. So there's going to be an enormous environmental benefit of converting this irrigated fertilized lawn into native buffer where there currently is none. And then also protecting, improving, and expanding the southern buffer as well.
I think we actually show that on the removal plan that your office did, that shows all of the, the yellow shows all of the non-native to be removed. And actually, we have pictures. We went out and field flagged everything and identified what's going to be removed.
And I think one other point about the circular fountain that we see, and you see the green hedge here, that's not an area where we're proposing to create any non-natives. That's an area where we're just leaving what is currently there and not removing it.
Correct. And then,
But Melissa, before you move on too far, I understand the preservation of those trees. What does creating, I think there's a fountain to the north there that you're installing. How does that help preserve the linden trees?
it doesn't help. It is aesthetic.
It doesn't help preserve the linden trees, but what we're trying to say is I think we have about 80,000. Is it about 80,000 square feet, Melissa, of
81,000
of buffer restoration, and which is more than we need to do, but it's also the right thing to do. The area inside that hedge where that circular fountain would go is currently in the area where the existing swimming pool is, and is currently a disturbed non-native area. That's a picture of it there, number 2. And so it is an aesthetic consideration and a nod to the Four Fountains name, if you will. And we thought we would be locating it at a place where it would not do any disturbance to areas of current ecological value.
But that's also why for that little bit of relief, we're more than happy to make up for it in many other places on the property.
Right, we understand that we're asking for something here, and in exchange for that, what we propose to do is to add back tens of thousands of square feet of environmental remediation and improvements.
Correct. Can you show the planting plan, Alexis?
Only Chick knows what these names mean, but they're all Voorhees approved.
So here is the wetlands plan, which I'm sure, like Ed said, Chick will give us any notes on our species if need be. And we also have a construction methodology that we prepared as part of this. And the other thing I'd like to note, actually, if you could go to the proposed site plan survey. We were also, it's a tight lot. We also were able, though, to, if you look at the left side, put the geothermal system in a conforming location. The septic system is in a conforming location. The house is in a conforming location. And really, the relief is being sought for the swimming pool, the new swimming pool, again, that's fronting on a wetland or a pond that really isn't a high quality native wetland. I mean, it's been definitely artificially maintained. We can provide you the copies of the DC permit about the poisoning of it. We are waiting for our DC review. The only thing we've got so far is some comments because it's both tidal and fresh water, so we have to get it from both of them. And I think that's all. If anybody has any questions.
Well, I mean, Melissa, I'll tell you my general reaction to all of this, and I mean, if your presentation is complete.
It's complete. It's a lot to take in, and we worked a long time on trying to make this work. It's a large lot. It's 7 acres. It's in the estate section, but then again, I also looked at what was approved recently to the south, where there was really no building envelope, and you allowed a house that's a larger house with a setback of 101 square feet. So I think with our buffer, we've given a lot of buffer, and we've done a lot of mitigation here. I think the balancing act shows that we really have done what we can do for this property. And I think it's come out beautiful.
And I think that the standard that I think I guess I need to emphasize is when I read the wetlands guidance, it requests the maximum feasible wetland setback. And on one hand, during your presentation, you refer to it as either a 6 or 7 acre lot. On the other hand, you refer to it as a tight lot. I don't find this a particularly challenging lot to work within the setbacks. In other words, other lots that we have addressed, they have very constrained building envelopes. This property does not. This property has a full acre.
That's also if you think about if we were to tear down the existing cottages, which I don't think the village wants us to do. The clients fell in love with the property, with those cottages. They have, even though they're not historic, there is a history and it does go to the character of the neighborhood. So in order to maintain those 2 front cottages on either side of the entrance and again, the house doesn't need relief.
But as a result of the house being as large as it is, as sprawling as it is, you're introducing the idea of putting a pool within a wetland setback where I don't see a challenge in having the pool not within the wetland setback. You have a full acre of building envelope, which doesn't include where you locate the septic system. The septic system is outside of that building envelope. There aren't that many properties that have a full acre of building envelope. You have about 43,000 square feet where you can locate a house, a pool, and perhaps if you want a tennis court. And I'm not seeing in any way an attempt to start with the premise that you might have to work within your existing building envelope and then expand from that. I'm not seeing the attempt. And that's my general reaction to this, is that this is, unlike a lot of other applications, a case where the property is large and the building envelope is large. And you still are seeing the need, quote unquote, to expand beyond that building envelope.
But I would say that it is constrained, not from the wetlands perspective. What we're saying is by trying to keep these historic or these structures with history. And by doing so, that has made it smaller. And again, just to remind the board, we're removing an existing pool house and swimming pool that are within the jurisdiction.
But you're just moving that to another
But we're moving it to, like I said, about the pond. This is not, if you went down there, it is lawn straight down to the pond. It has planks on it. It might as well be considered an artificial pond, because if they didn't have the aerator system there, it would have filled in by now. So the quality of the wetlands, you also have to look at the quality of the wetlands.
And what we're going to then do for the wetlands as well, because there are no wetlands, it's just a body of water. We're actually going to create, I think it's what the balance we were trying to achieve was understanding there was a pool in a non-conforming location adjacent to valuable wetlands. Could we move that to another location bordering basically what aren't wetlands? There's just lawn down to the edge of water currently. We're going to basically be creating the wetlands when we plant these species, because right now we have an edge of water and we have lawn. And so it's not like there really aren't any wetlands in that area right now. There is literally turf that goes underwater there. We're proposing to add ecologically valuable wetlands that don't currently exist. And then the swimming pool that is within that jurisdictional area. But I think, Chick, you would agree that putting the pool in an area which is currently lawn and lawn down to this body of water, what the end result with this pool and the buffer is actually an ecological improvement a dramatic ecological improvement over what's there now.
Okay, I'll make just two more points and then I'll leave it to the other board members for them to weigh in. Yes, the whole point here is to accomplish a major ecological improvement, environmental improvement. I mean, you know, we're in a different era now, and we've learned a great deal about how to protect the environment, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. And we're supposed to be doing it intelligently. You know, I had the same reaction when I looked at the new waterfront law, and if there's a purpose to the new waterfront zoning regulation, it's to move structures out of the wetlands. This application struck me as particularly aggressive because on one hand, it requests setback relief in the wetlands, and then it uses the waterfront regulation newly passed to still ask for a front yard tennis court. The purpose of the regulation, if I understand the purpose, or one of the purposes, is to move structures out of the wetlands. In this application, you try to do both. You try to leave structures in the wetlands and then say, but we also need to take advantage of this new waterfront law and put the tennis court in the front yard. You know, so my reaction to this in general is that we haven't really made an attempt to comply with what is needed for the village. And it just seems like an aggressive application to me, but I'll leave it to anybody else who wants to weigh in.
Well, my impression is that you're trying to give us a trade-off. You're saying, look, we're going to be 2 acres of land and it's going to become undisturbed, you know, revert back to its natural state with natural vegetation. And that's a great thing. I mean, the more of that you can do to preserve and protect the wetland, the better. But on the same token, you're using it as a sort of a pawn to trade off for pool and tennis court and these other items that we're discussing. Maybe there's room in between there. I'm always looking for, you know, to protect the village regulations, to work with the owner. And I think that's what you're trying to attempt to do here. But I think I take Mark's point where it's more of a trade-off than to get in that game. That's my first impression.
Dan, the last statement that you made broke up. Could you possibly repeat it? Could you reconstruct just the last part of it?
Well,
You said you
I'm saying,
were looking for a trade-off and then you got cut off.
no, I'm saying it's sort of a trade-off. They're giving, restoring 2 acres of undisturbed, you know, natural vegetation, wetlands area, but they want to take advantage of a tennis court regulation and move the swimming pool into a wetlands area. So it's a trade-off negotiation. That's what it sounds like to me.
Right.
And I think what Mark is saying is that no attempt with this big, huge lot is to try to fit everything for both, to meet the regulations and to preserve the wetland. You know, it's
And then just from my point of view, to put it into context, at the same time as they're asking for a substantial amount of relief, they're also requesting 18,000 square feet of gross floor area, living space. I mean, between the house, which is 14,000 square feet, and the accessory cottages, which they're allowing to remain, it adds up to 18,000 square feet of living space.
Yeah, but doesn't that within code though? They're not going beyond.
Sure, it's
code.
within code. That's within code, but it's not within code if it compels the applicant to request wetlands relief because their house is so large that they can't fit their accessory structures anymore within the setbacks. You know, maybe this is supposed to be an 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 square foot house with the accessory structures, you know, fitting within the setbacks.
You also mentioned these two cottages in the front that they're preserving, which sort of puts the house where it is and sort of causes the pool to be in the wetlands and the tennis court to be in the front yard. But was that just because that's the owner wanted to preserve them, or does the village really want those?
The village, if they were built at the time of the building of the theater that was turned into the house that was demolished, they are not protected by the historic. Anything built after 1926 is not protected. So that's how the house was demolished. And so the other two things that they left, the other two structures, which I believe have 7 bedrooms combined, when you combine the square, what's inside them. The other two structures, therefore, are not protected in any way by the village. You know, so I don't think it's a preservation issue that much. I mean, I've actually, you know, on the ARB, it was unfortunate.
Can you set the record straight? Are the existing structures there because you are not allowed to demolish them? Lisa?
Melissa?
I'm Melissa.
I thought I was saying that. Sorry, Melissa?
Oh, Gil would probably be better to answer that.
Okay, sorry.
No, we are allowed to demolish them. There's no question about we were allowed to demolish them, but part of the idea was to preserve that overall look and appearance from the street, not only from the point of view of the applicant, but also from the point of view of the village. And they are lawfully existing structures. And again, as I think as Ed Hollander said, to preserve that alley of trees that leads up to them, to keep that same general impact and view, which has been a part of that community for decades.
And again, I mean, I hear what you're saying, Mark, about the adding, but remember, we're reducing the impervious surface within the village's 150-foot jurisdiction by 51%.
Yeah, but Melissa, I mean, sometimes I kind of have to ask you to highlight for us, certain things that, and not have me, let's say, be a detective. 7,000 square feet is a driveway that you're no longer using. So of course it's going to be removed. So to look at that as some type of, concession on the part of the applicant, I have trouble doing that.
No, it's also a pool house. It's also terracing. It's
Yes,
also
but 7,000 feet of it is a driveway that's no longer needed. So of course you're going to be removing it, but I don't see that as a real concession on the applicant's part to remove the
I think
driveway
it's
no
not
longer
fair to
needed.
the applicant. I think the applicant could have kept it and they didn't want to, they didn't try to, we told them that the southern wetland was the more important wetland and we want to try to pull everything we can out of that. Like I said, the only reason we even are asking for that minimal bit of relief there, which isn't, it was because there's an existing hedge there and those existing linden trees, which are beautiful, and we'd like to maintain it.
I'd like to know if Chick has reviewed these plans yet.
Chick, are you there? Do you want to weigh in?
Yes, and thanks very much. So yes, I've reviewed the plans extensively. I will say that this is a site that is a little bit different than many of the ones we've looked at that do tend to be constrained, whether they're on Meadow Lane with wetlands to the north on a coastal erosion hazard area or some other types of constraints. I did find this to be similar to what Mark has outlined, that in my opinion, it's quite aggressive because of that. This graphic is one that I had requested that Melissa and her team provided. And it's very helpful in seeing what's being removed and what the trade-offs are. And basically the driveway that we're talking about that Melissa and the team did describe is here. Here's the location of the existing or pre-existing pool. There's patio around that. And this is that alley. You can actually see in old aerial photographs.
And the pool house is right there too.
And I'm sorry, right here is the pool house. There's another rectangle there. Thank you. And that's essentially being located over in this cluster, this area. In terms of the wetlands, you know, it's interesting that you brought that up, and several in the group brought it up. Let me just see if I can go to the aerial photograph that I have. Is that visible now?
Yep.
Okay, so here's 359 Meadow Lane. And this was referred to several times. But we did approve a permit, but you can see there's sprawling structure in that area. And everything here was consolidated. As Melissa said, it had wetlands on 4 sides. Everything was consolidated and all of this has become revegetated. This pond, I have looked at aerial photographs, and certainly it does go back prior to the 1960s. It acts as a natural pond. It appears as though it had been connected at one time. And as Ed said, the lawn around it, you know, along with access by wildfowl populations, fertilizers, runoff, sedimentation, is causing that pond to have water quality issues. But it's actually, you know, it actually has the potential to be a fairly good wetland. These are the formerly connected wetlands that Melissa mentioned, and much of this is Phragmites. And,
I'm good.
you know, we haven't gotten extensively into trying to weigh the relative value of different wetlands. I will say that applicants have made those arguments, but the board has looked to maximize setbacks from wetlands. And although the DEC has a weighing standard, and that is referred to in village law, the village law is actually more stringent. And we really look to maximize setbacks, which is what the law says to do. So I'm just going to go back to this one. And it's my opinion that there's an enormous amount of land that could be used for development that is not being used. And that corresponds to the blue area and potentially other areas if conforming structures can be placed there. I'll clarify that the green shaded area and this division between the white and green is the 125-foot setback. And that's the village setback for landscaping. And you'll find, you know, through our review, through the board's review, we've looked very carefully at what takes place within that landscape setback. And Melissa made reference to a 50-foot setback, but that's not in the law. And that has typically not come up. I mean, that might be a recommendation for existing properties on ponds that are not proposing wetlands permits, where a minimum 50-foot buffer is a good thing to add. But when we're looking at a redevelopment of a site, we look very carefully at the entire 125-foot setback area. And when I look at that here, you know, in consideration with the other buildable areas, there's an enormous amount of activity, more than we've seen on properties that are even constrained. These are fill lines. So there's fill contours that are going quite close to the pond. It's certainly laudable to improve the vegetation around the pond, but part of the reason the pond is deteriorated is because of that exact thing. So we want to maximize setbacks. I'm not thrilled about a slope going down to the pond, even with vegetation, because I think that promotes runoff and overland flow. We've got retaining walls. These steps say that they're grass steps, but there's retaining walls all through here. And you may even recall, you know, 950 Meadow Lane that was just approved. We were looking to try and push retaining walls outside of the 150-foot setback. And that 150 setback is right here between the blue and the green. So I see an enormous amount of structure. I see a large amount of grading, retaining walls, pool, courtyards, and even this fountain that was discussed within the 125-foot area. So I do see this as quite aggressive. As far as the trade-off, I didn't do cores of this driveway. It certainly appears to be a stone driveway. The plan says it's a stone driveway. It doesn't really have drainage and it appears to drain. But, you know, it's certainly something that we would always look to have that removed from the 125-foot area. But the trade-off to me looks out of balance in terms of the environmental conditions that this board would typically seek within the 125-foot setback area. So those are my comments on the plan, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Chick, I'm confused about the grading. What is that even? What is the grading for? Because they're going to build up where the house is, or what's going on here?
Well, their team and certainly the designers, most likely Ed can explain it, but there are some subsurface drainage structures here that, you know, they may make the case that you need to elevate this to put the structures in. But to me, the grading is excessive and perhaps those structures could be elsewhere. And I mean, I would even look, you know, certainly we want as much out of the wetland setback as possible.
And the retaining walls, how many, what are they for? Why is all, I mean, it seems so incredibly invasive.
Can I give you a clarification? Those actually aren't really retaining walls. They're only 2 foot high. They're really landscape features. And the other thing with regard to drainage, this plan unfortunately didn't correctly show that we have maximized all the drainage. We have a whole bunch of drainage units that aren't shown that are actually under the house. It's very difficult to find.
They may be here.
Yeah, no, there's more actually that goes throughout the whole
These are leaching galleys under the house.
It keeps going under, and actually we have to have that corrected because there are more underneath the entire footprint of the house. There is drainage.
But what about by the pond going down that gradient?
The existing grade there is so low. It's down at elevation 2 part of the property. So, you know, I've seen areas at elevation 2 that are actually underwater. And, you know, some of it's elevation 2, elevation 3.
But is it underwater? I've been there, Ed. You know, there's a lawn that goes down to this.
Right. So we're
pond,
proposing
right?
to remove all the lawn and revegetate that into
I
native
get
wetland.
that. But I'm asking about dickering with the entire topography down there.
Working with the engineers, trying to site drainage structure so that we don't just run the water across the land, but get it down into dry wells below ground. They had to raise, if they put dry wells in at elevation 3, the top of the dry well is at, you know, it's underwater. So that basically the dry wells have no capacity at all. And they needed to raise an area. Now, do we have to have a curved wall? No. Do they need the raised area to be able to get the necessary amount of drainage? Yes.
The raised area being the house area?
The area between, if you will, the proposed grass steps, that area that they're circling there. That's all raised up to about elevation 9, so that there's room to get drains and dry wells in there to handle the required roof runoff and other drainage that's necessary. Right now, there aren't drains or dry wells anywhere here. The water just runs over the lawn down into the pond. The idea that the engineers were trying to get this to conform with the village codes having to do with runoff and drainage and things like that.
What's the boost up of the actual house? Because is this FEMA related, the house?
I'll let the architects talk to that, but yes, I think it is.
Okay. They don't have to do it now, but it just does seem, I mean, I don't think it's all explained to me on how suddenly it's boosted up and then you have to grade it down. It just
No,
seems-
we actually, I don't think the architects can come on, but we're in what's called a coastal AE 12. So what that means is that we have to design to VE standards. And what that ends up resulting is that first floor is at 15. That being said, we're not bringing fill up to 15, as you can see on the grading. We're not doing that. We actually have, if you see that there's stairs there, there's a lot of stairs in the front. So there's a lot of walking up to get to the first floor. The grading, not grade out.
Fill into the site then.
Sorry?
You're gonna be bringing a lot of fill onto the property.
Right, and the use of that fill, if you look at, on our, it's on the proposed site plan, I believe we have as a note, is pretty much for drainage and for septic.
Yeah, so what, do we have fill, how much, you have calculations here of how much?
Yes,
fill
it's
you-
on that plan. It should be on the.
You
Check
can
if you
get
look.
it for us, but I mean, I would.
Yeah, I can stop sharing if you want to put up a plan.
No, it's on your plan. If you just go to the notes section. It's right on the proposed site plan. Should be still on there.
I think it was removed from this.
Oh, shoot.
The Weisenbacher plans, it's usually down in here, but I
Yeah,
didn't.
that's usually where it is. Alexis, can you show the proposed site plan? Oh,
Yes, I can. One moment.
it's under the notes section.
There's an Eduardo Bush who has his hand raised. Is he part of your team that needs to come in?
I think he's a neighbor.
Oh, okay. Would you like him to come in now, or would you?
Let them finish their presentation, and then, yes, we'll welcome.
Okay.
Now, down below, Alexa, the other way.
Okay.
Keep going up, keep going up, keep going up. Zoom in. There you go. See the up. Hello? I just got kicked off.
No, you're here.
Oh, okay.
94.
You're on.
94, it's 9,400 cubic yards.
Yeah, for septic and drainage, for Maraska.
And I don't know if that's all within the 125 feet, but
No,
a lot of that's up in the front, Chick, up where the septic system is going, in the
Okay.
the northwest corner.
you may want to break that out to what's within 125. We have looked at that on past applications.
Sure, we can do that. But I know that was one of the first discussions is we're not bringing grade, so you can walk right from your lawn up to your first floor. So. And you'd like it within the 125 foot, or what setback did you want, Chick?
Within the 125, that's the landscape setback.
Yep.
Julia or Kevin, do you have any questions?
No, I'm still trying to absorb all of this.
Julia, do you have questions? Can you hear me, Julia?
Yep, I can hear you just fine. I too I'm trying to absorb all of it. It's a lot to take in all at once.
It is. It is. I hope walking it through the plans helped.
Well, I think that there are multiple types of relief that are being asked for. And that's, as a board, I think we need to talk through how to parse that out. And understanding the question around the fill, I'd like to know how much fill is going into each part of the property.
We can do that.
Are there neighbors that would like to be heard, or anybody else who would like to be heard?
Yes.
Yes, please. I'd like to be heard. Hello. Thank you for your time, board. My name is Mark Picard, and I represent a group that's has serious objections to the setback and the variance requests. We've submitted some documentation to that effect, which I assume you've all had a chance to review. I won't, go through all of the properties that that the group is unified with, but I will say a couple of things. I think the first thing that we'd like to say is that the intent here, and we agree that it's a very large undertaking, and it is a lot to take in, and we request that the board do as you just discussed, and which was really good to hear, that you'll take it all in pieces, because there really is a lot here. But But we think that the intent here is to gain special privilege on a number of fronts. And really, it's the first one is on the height issue. To get relief from the 7-foot roof reduction, but keep the roof flat and start the house at 16 feet, sort of speaks to, I think the challenge for everybody around. First off, it's a very large structure. I think there was comment made before that the prior driveways and curbs were 19,000 square feet of the 33,000 square feet of coverage. And now that number is going down to 2,600. So effectively the rest is either patio or structure here. There'll be 17 bedrooms when the project is complete, if it were to be approved as proposed. And it'll also be almost 50 feet high. And so it will be lit. And so from everywhere adjacent for quite a ways, you will, sort of be aware of this property. And it's such an important property, historic property. And it just seems like it may be over encroaching on the neighborhood. In addition to that, the pond and the wetlands that are being described as low quality, having lived just to the north since '99, and many of my neighbors in the group are also in that camp or longer, we find that wetland to be is absolutely beautiful. There's many natural species there. There's an osprey nest there. There's a number of other indigenous species, and we view that as a man-made structure. The notion that it connected at one point in time before, and that would somehow be a basis to say that it's waterfront now, particularly in light of the building inspector already ruling, that seems also like a bridge too far for us. I also think that putting all of the sanitary and all of the walls along the perimeter, particularly along Meadowmere Place, will dramatically add to the drainage issues that already exist in this area. And there are other neighbors on the call, and they may share some detail around that. But we have a major drainage issue in this area. And while I respect the fact that this property will capture their own water, I think we have to be sensitive to what it does to all the surrounding, particularly Halsey Neck Road, which is sometimes underwater after storm surge, to Meadowmere Place, and to the neighboring properties. I also would like to, point out that the pool and the pergola and the rate of elevation change and the size of that structure and all of those patios and what that will do to the runoff and the groundwater into the pond and into the wetland that's perceived as low quality is of serious concern to all of us. I'll stop there and sort of just thank the board for some of the comments that they've already made, of which we appreciate and agree with.
Jolie, are there any other?
Yes, Eduardo Bush, I believe, would like to speak.
Yes, hi, thank you. Thank you to the whole board for allowing me to speak and the space to express kind of our reservations about the project. I'm the owner of the house just to the north of this development. It's 636 Halsey Neck Lane. I mean, there's a couple of things that raise a little bit of concern for us. First, as Mark well said, the entire septic system, or not the entire, but it seems like the septic system of this house is going to be underwater every time it rains. Like, I want to share with you some photographs, if I may, of what happens there, because I would like the board to kind of understand what this means. And let me see if I can do this. Okay, so bear with me 1 second. But maybe you can see that.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we can go to one of these other, well, I have a bunch of photographs that just show that entire area is underwater whenever there's a storm. Number one. Number two is the height and how it affects the shadow and how it affects the sun and how it affects the view. all of that. I would just ask the board to, to keep an eye out for the neighbors, right? I don't know what exactly the code should say. I'm not an expert in construction. I'm not an expert in any one of those topics, but I do know that, the board is there to help someone build and to protect the neighbors. And, the issues that we care about are the height. We care about the septic tanks being underwater and the whole drainage issue that's been there historically. And also, there is a 9-foot wall somewhere, I think, around the tennis court that seems a little excessive.
There's actually a 9-foot wall that runs down the entire Meadowmere Place line up into a existing cottage, which is non-conforming, which is actually on the line, which we, find concerning.
Those are the only, those are kind of the real issues that we have, and we would appreciate if they can be taken into consideration as this project goes forward. We obviously would love our new neighbor to have a great house and enjoy it, and with his family. And, we are a good community. We are, good neighbors around. We know each other. And so we would love to welcome them. We would just like to have them hear us in terms of our concerns. And with that, I'll leave the floor for someone else. Thank you so much for letting me in.
Thank you, Eduardo.
Yeah, I want to just share Eduardo's sentiment. We've unified as a group because we've had to, because of other issues that have happened along the way, and there's been some comments made tonight that it's impossible to see these things and no one will notice and there's no detriment to the community, and those are just disingenuous, because we're living through it as a community. And that's part of the reason for this reaction, which is unfortunate to the current applicant, but is sort of consistent with the group's desire to keep building in code in this village. And thank you for hearing us. And the neighbors that are going to be here, we do welcome you. And I'm sorry that this is sort of the way that this has all sort of been said. And there.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Jolie, is there anybody else who wants to be heard?
No one else has their hand up, no.
Melissa, the retaining wall that Mark and Eduardo were referring to, can you highlight that for us? I guess it's a retaining wall that runs east-west.
I confirmed it with Ed Hollander's office and Katie and Maresca Engineering. The wall in question is at a maximum 4 feet in height. They're misreading the elevations. They're reading the top of wall elevation at 9, which means that's the elevation per mean sea level, not what the actual height is. The maximum height of that wall is 4 feet.
Right, the bottom of the wall is at 5 and the top of the wall is at 9, but it's only a 4-foot high wall.
Correct.
And the purpose of that wall is what?
It's a retaining wall. It's, I believe, more for stormwater drainage.
And retaining the septic and the stormwater.
Yeah.
Isn't it for the sanitary system in this area?
No, it's the other wall on the north, off of Meadowmere Place, Chick.
This one?
That
Yeah.
wall. That makes a dog leg. Yep.
You can see all the drainage that Maresca has in there.
And that's the second, we actually had to split the sanitary system, so that's the other sanitary system too. So this, per code, we kept the septic system outside a 200-foot jurisdiction.
So that driveway will actually be 4 foot higher than Meadowmere Place.
Correct.
10 feet at parking.
No.
Right, but it's elevation 10, but Meadowmere Place is about elevation 5 as well. So it's not that, it's in relation to Meadowmere. The wall's 4 feet tall. So that area will be up to 4 feet higher than Meadowmere Place.
Right, but you're filling to the top of the wall on the property. That's where all this fill coming in.
Yes, exactly right. We have to get the septic up at an elevation so that it works, and then there's a retaining wall and then the fill that goes around the septic.
How does that work with the setbacks on this? Is this the private road? Doesn't that require?
No, David, can you weigh in? I don't believe the retaining wall has any setbacks.
No.
David, are you there?
Yes, I don't believe it does either. There's specific regulations for the non-access private roads.
Right, but regardless, retaining walls don't, do they have setbacks, retaining walls?
Not usually.
I don't
They
believe
don't.
do.
And,
They-
and,
they
and
don't.
we're happy to work with the Meadowmere Place folks. Klaus Muller was a client of mine, to make sure that the landscape outside that wall is attractive to the neighbors as well. I think our clients would like that. We've done a couple of the houses on Meadowmere, including for Klaus. So, we want to be good neighbors as well. We understand the scale of this is an issue. And, if we need to do some additional landscaping and plantings to mitigate any of this, we're happy to do it.
Mhm. Klaus is also a client of mine and Gil's as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we have enough for now. Do we want to close this for all purposes? Is that okay with you, Melissa?
I think we want to keep it open.
Keep it
Adjourn
open.
for all
Sorry,
purposes.
keep it open for all purposes. Sorry. we might not-
If you'd like to approve it this evening, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Gil, does that work for you? We'll keep it open for all purposes.
Yes, it does. We expect it.
Can I have a motion to close the meeting for tonight, but to leave it open for all purposes? Case number 3097 for Fountain
Case
660
number
Halsey Neck
309,
Lane.
we adjourn for all purposes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all very much. and
Thank
Merry
you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy
Good night.
holidays all.
I'd like to give a shout out to Peter Penoyer. He and I worked on a project together for the Longwood Public Library a couple of years ago.
Oh, right. Thank you. Well, of course.
Again.
Good to see you. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay, so
you.
We're going to move on to case number 3095, Alexander Wolf, 35 Cooper Street.
Just give me a moment. Let me,
It's that time of the night, if I could just let you know, there's no further wetlands applications on.
Good night, Chick.
Happy holidays, Chick.
You
Thank
as
you.
well.
The N21, Chick.
Yes, if not sooner, but have a wonderful evening, wonderful holidays, everyone. Take care.
Thanks for all your help.
Thank you, Chick.
Most welcome.
Jolie, are you locating the applicant for case number
Yes.
3095?
it's Lisa.
Lisa's
Beloga.
right here.
She's in.
Here. You guys ready?
Yep.
I'm going to share my screen again, if that's okay.
Before you do, could you just confirm that you submitted the affidavits of notice and posting?
I did.
Thank you.
So this is an application for
Could you make that any bigger?
yes, I can.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
That bigger?
Yeah, it got really big on my screen. Hold on.
Oh, did it? Sorry.
Hasn't done a thing
No,
on
I had
that.
already
That's all right.
pitched you out, so.
Never mind, I can't.
Can't see it. I have a survey and whatnot for you too. Also, I was just gonna start with the neighborhood. This is a project on Cooper Street that is currently a 1.5 story house. The first floor, is the entire footprint. However, the second floor has 2 bedrooms and a bathroom over the front half of the house, an attic over the back half of the house. You can see how the existing house is at an angle to the property line, as many of these houses in this neighborhood are, which is part of the reason that the relief is needed, if you will. So this is the site plan. Our addition is on the front of the house here. That does not require any variances or setback variances. I'm purely looking for some pyramid relief. So what I put in to you guys right before the work session, or right before this meeting, I guess, was another set of elevations that compared the existing elevations to the proposed elevations. I thought that might be helpful to you to just see what was what's on the property currently compared to what we're proposing. So the top elevations are existing, the bottom one is the proposed. These double pyramid lines that I have shown here are based on the fact that, as I said, the house is at an angle to the property line. So I was trying to kind of give you an idea of the pyramid law at the front of the house, and then the pyramid law kind of at the location of where the ridge actually is coming into play in terms of the fact that the house is at an angle to the property. So basically, this area in here that is currently a second floor has a ceiling height of about 6'11", 6'10". So it doesn't meet code. So we're trying to basically take off the roof, build a steeper roof pitch, which you can kind of see on the sides. We're going to have a steeper roof pitch, create a little bit of a reverse gable, and get some full second floor space over this. So there's basically 3 pyramid locations that I'm looking for. This little corner of the roof right here, this little corner of the roof right here, and east, and a little portion of this shed roof that you can see is that little portion right there. So that's kind of everything else is within the pyramid. And again, it's primarily because the house is cockeyed to the property line that these things happen. So the total relief being requested, the total of those 3 pieces is 147.6 cubic feet. So that front one is it's 9.5 cubic feet over here, 42 cubic feet over here, and this little piece of the shed dormer is 95 cubic feet. So it's really just a smidgen of the roof in each location.
And you're working with the existing house?
I'm working with the existing house. Like I said, we are coming in and putting in an addition on the front of the house here. Currently there's a little like a little mud room almost on the front of the house that bumps forward, so we're kind of squaring that off. But yes, the existing part of the house is staying and being maintained.
It looks like none of the pyramid relief that you're looking for actually falls into living area.
No, it does not. It's purely roof. It's purely a little piece of roof. It's on the front elevation, it really, it's really an aesthetic, a little tiny smidgen of the gable, and on the backside, it's to get windows in on that dormer, really to get enough height. It's set at 7 feet. It's not excessively tall. And the first floor height is just shy of 8 feet actually, and we're not changing that. So yes, it's purely just a little piece of roof in each location.
So I liked everything you did, Lisa, believe it or not.
I'm shocked.
I'm shocked myself. I went over there and I actually felt that this house needed some definite attention, and I think it's tasteful and it's not so, and what you're asking for is reasonable, and it would be a lovely little place to live. So there.
I like it.
Fine with me. This street has a lot of narrow lots on it, and it's tough to arrange things just the way you want them.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Me too.
Yeah, I agree. Lisa, I mean, it fits nicely into the character of the community. I mean, it's a tasteful renovation.
Thank you.
Should we close this for all purposes?
Yeah.
Can I have a motion to
Sure.
close Case number 3095, Alexander Wolf, 35 Cooper Street, for all purposes.
So moved.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Lisa.
Bye.
So we're moving on to case number 3096, Andrew Spreitzer, 85 Hildreth Street. Jolie, do we have the applicant here, or do we have a representative for the applicant?
Yes. Could you just tell me which case one? My agenda does not match up the way that we're going tonight. It's not given an updated. So what are we on now, please?
Case number 3096.
Okay, we just finished Alexander Wolf then. Okay.
Correct. Case number 3095.
Okay, sorry about that.
No problem.
Andrew Spreitzer is coming in.
You're muted.
Hi. I'm at awe of how hard you're working tonight and how late this will go. Thank you. It's remarkable.
I'm a first-time caller.
Yeah, I'm a first-time caller. Long time. First time, long time.
Like a sports show.
Yeah. Mark, you look like you're the sports host. It's great. Like Greeny on ESPN. At any rate, I did send out all the letters. I know you asked the other applicants. And
David, you're muted.
You filed those affidavits with the village?
I did, and I brought them to the building department on Monday.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. I was told by the building department I couldn't screen share because they were worried about inappropriate things being shared. But I see everybody has screen share. Do you have all of the supplemental materials?
We have everything that you submitted to the building department.
Yeah, okay. So pictures and descriptions and
Yes.
accounts of the game.
Yes. Garage photos, shed photos. Most importantly, are the surveys.
Right. So I gave you the one which was the building envelope from 85 Hildreth, and then the current proposed survey showing the request for the porch, the 55 square feet area for the pool, the garage extension on the east, and the sheds on the north. Do you have any questions, or should I just give you the rundown?
You can go ahead. Who prepared the building envelope, Andrew?
That was done at the building department by Tien, and Chris was there. In fact, everything that I've asked for, Chris said, you should ask for this, so he gave me his blessing, so that's why I'm here. But the blue line in that building envelope shows the pool, what's allowed for a pool, and the red is the what is allowed for the building. So in every case, it's just like the previous woman. It's a sliver here, it's a sliver there. The pool, it's a deck at the moment. It was a covered patio prior, but since it was built by, I guess, Harry Wild in 1962, there's been something in that space, whether it was a covered patio or a deck with a C of O. And I know that I spoke with Carol Bennett, who said that she opposed. But there's a letter there from her tenant who said that they had even no idea that we were even living there, because the issue was always whether or not there would be noise in that space. So, so that kind of drives all the other requests, other than the porch, which is to make it more of a beautiful space and in keeping with the rest of the neighborhood and the other houses around it. And in the 9 lots around us, 7 of them have pools. And I know I don't hear any of them. Even the one to my north, I'm sorry, to my east, which is the, no, I'm saying that wrong. In the north, which is the Thompson property, they have a pool very close. I never hear them or their children. So.
But one of the questions I have here is, and first, David, maybe you can weigh in on this as well, David. The building envelope prepared, I guess, by somebody in the building department, wouldn't we need that scaled by a surveyor? Because I mean, one of the things that seems inconsistent to me is the application requests a 20-foot eastern line setback for the front porch where 25 is required, but the building envelope shows a 20-foot setback.
Ideally, yes, we would like that shown on there, scaled by the surveyor.
So I'm not sure if the porch relief is only for a sliver of the front porch or more. In other words, I can't tell from your application how many square feet is in the setback and how many are complying with the setback.
Right, because the building envelope I have in my submission only has one red line on it. And it says that, like you said, it says it's supposed to be a 25-foot setback from Hildreth, yet the one corner of that porch is only 23.6, and the red line is in front of it as if the rest of it meets the setback.
The other corner is only 20 feet.
Right, the front corner by Jennings is only 20 feet. The back corner to the north is 23.6. If that red line shows it as compliant, so you really need to have this plotted by your surveyor.
In other words, it's compliant.
Okay.
Well, you may be able to, provide a porch that does comply. But this seems to require relief, and we can't tell from your submissions how much relief is needed. A surveyor would need to provide that.
Can you do it just by the survey as to saying what we're asking and what they say is the setback from the street line? I mean, I know there's the town, and then there's the lot size, and it says 20 feet and 23.6, and we're supposed to have 25.
Right, but for the board to properly evaluate the relief you're requested, they need it depicted properly. And like I said, that red line is off by at least 2.5 feet on the building envelope that was submitted. Right. I mean, it shows that it's in front of the porch to Hildreth Street when that porch is only 23.6, and it's saying the minimum is supposed to be 25. We're off by 2.5 feet from what's shown, and that goes to the significance of the relief requested and how the board's going to evaluate it.
But that's because the street is on an angle. So it changes.
Oh, but I understand the street is on an angle, sir, but the setback measured on that the northeast corner of that porch, the measurement on the survey says 23.6 feet. The minimum setback is 25. Yet, on the survey that you have with that building envelope shown, the red line is not even set back as far as the corner of the porch. It's off by over 2.5 feet.
Right.
The envelope that you're putting forward.
Well, what if I never even gave you that and I just said, here's the survey, how do we conform, or it's 20 feet on the west?
We'd be asking you for the same depiction of where the required setback is.
For relief.
Okay. All right. It just seems that it's 5 feet, right? There on the west side, because
Can't
it's supposed-
tell.
Yeah,
But isn't it-
Just need a plus surveyor.
All right.
Okay. Moving on.
Haven't discussed the pool yet.
No, I know.
I mean,
I thought I might have had an easy one, but I'm not sure.
when I'm with that pool, I mean,
This says up,
should be granting pools that need variances.
and just for a simple point of clarification as well, it is not 100 square feet, so it's technically not a swimming pool.
Not 100 square feet?
No, they're proposing, it says it's 60 square feet, it's 12 by 5. So it's not technically a swimming pool.
All right,
That is the request
addition.
for the variance. It actually,
Is it touching the corner of the house and the corner of the garage, the pool?
it goes from the corner of the garage to, it's set back there. You see that the deck is set back into what it's
4 feet
on
into
the,
the house.
yeah, 4 feet into the house
Building envelope.
where it says enclosed porch on the survey.
No, I'm good.
I think what we're asking is, does the pool actually abut the garage?
Looks like it does.
It does.
And there's supposed to be some separation there?
So where it says wood deck, that's gonna be a pool now?
Yes.
Yes.
Aren't there requirements to set it back from buildings and you have to fence it? I don't know what they are, but
5 feet.
doable.
It's fully fenced.
I mean, it is a fully fenced property.
Oh, you have to fence the, whatever the water thing is, if we're not calling it a pool.
Yes.
I mean,
It's a plunge pool.
it's going to be 12 by 12, so it's 140, or 11 by 11, so that's 132. So that is a pool, right?
Okay,
That's a
the
pool.
chart on your survey says proposed pool 60 square feet.
Well,
So-
that-
That's
and
the extra
That's the extra that doesn't conform.
to the building envelope.
So we do
The
have
rest
a
of it
pool.
in the house.
The rest of it is legal because it has the 20-foot setback.
A little less than half of it is legal.
David, my question is there a regulation requiring a separation of the pool from any other structures?
Not that I'm aware of, but that would be a question for Chris. That's a building code question. The only thing I know they need to be separated from is from septic systems. I don't know if there's a way to design it so that it uses the wall of the structure as one of the sides. That's up to Chris.
Yeah, I mean, Chris was the one that told me to ask to put it there, that it was, he said you could run it from the enclosed porch into the garage if you wanted to, and you wouldn't even need a variance. If you went east to west. Because the only issue there was the 20-foot setback. And we were at, on this proposed survey, we're 14.3. I thought we were 15, but they're saying 14.3.
I'm not in favor of the pool.
Say that again?
Too tight. Too tight, too close to the buildings. I'm not in favor of that pool there.
So if I didn't put it on that proposed and I kept it 20 feet from the line, I can put it there. Is that correct?
Yeah.
If you can find room on your property to fit it 20 feet back and it
No,
complies.
I would take off part of the garage.
No, so this is already approved.
I would take it off of the garage and run it east to west. In that,
It's almost a square, so it doesn't make any difference whether you run east, west, or north, south.
no, I would make it, but I would be 20 feet back. So I would,
Move back in where the enclosed porch is.
what's that?
Move back in where the enclosed porch is.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would do. I would do it at the 20-foot setback, which is where the house is,
On the porch.
and the enclosed porch, and then go east and make it long and skinny rather than a square.
But we're not trying to increase beyond the enclosed porch.
No, we would, okay, if that's a problem, I mean, I was hoping that we could just plop it where the deck is, but if that's a problem, then we'll just put it in the house and take off the roof.
Now, where's the pool equipment gonna go?
That was gonna go in the shed, which is to the east.
But
The new shed that's not conforming?
It depends, it's non-conforming for the setback from the east, and I was asking for relief there, so it wasn't just a 4-foot shed wide. I mean,
You're gonna add 2 non-conforming structures?
Yes.
2 sheds, both non-conforming.
I mean, I could make them 1 shed and just make it long.
They've
I'm
been
not
asked
sure-
for
Should be
2.
setbacks.
I don't get it. Why is all this non-conforming
Well,
happening?
because I have a constrained building envelope being a
Yes, I think
corner.
you should actually pay attention to that idea.
But I don't think we can be okaying the building of non-conforming structures. We deal with them if they're already there, but not to create them.
Correct.
So,
The shed you could do.
so the shed, I could make a 4-foot shed and it would conform,
What's the setback for the shed? Is it 10 feet?
10 feet. Could I get some relief on the space between the shed and the garage?
Everybody, I'd really like to see a plan for us to be commenting on. I feel like we're workshopping what we're looking at right now, and I appreciate that the applicant needs some assistance, but I don't actually see that as our job to actually be, I don't think any of us are offering anything but ideas. I don't think we're offering, a decision by making some of these suggestions. And I'm afraid that that could become confusing.
Yeah, and Andrew, I think the general guidance is that you are attempting to add too many non-conforming structures to a somewhat constrained property, and it would be unlikely for the board to approve a variance for 2 sheds, a pool, and an extension to your garage. So if you want, you could try to minimize the requested relief, but the general consensus of the board right now is that you're far past anything that the board would approve in terms of variances.
Fair enough. So, yeah, fair enough, fair enough. So would you recommend that if I don't make the pool a variance and would the porch be something that would go because it's?
Well, that was the one that I thought was the relatively easy one, because it didn't seem like there was a great deal of relief being requested, but we can't tell without a surveyor's drawings to scale how much relief is being requested. Then the question would be, do you need a 10-foot wide porch? I would ask that once.
Yeah, you could have a 6-foot wide porch there, you know?
Right.
The garage, you're asking for a garage that's gonna be 38 feet long?
Well, that was, Chris had said, if you don't get the pool variance, maybe you extend the garage so that you can run the pool in the garage area.
Have a 38-foot garage, why do you need the 2 sheds? Put your storage in the garage.
Yeah, the garage is not a garage at this point. The previous owner had made it a laundry room and a bedroom. So it is a very small garage. You can't even park a car in it.
What do you plan to do with it?
Park a car in it, because as we know with the snow, it would be a nice thing in the future. Pardon me?
You gonna keep the laundry room?
Yeah, keep the laundry room and the bedroom. And I was hoping to actually put a bathroom in the bedroom area and then extend out to park a car.
Okay, for the time being, why don't we leave it at this? Maybe you can, at a future time, come back to the board with perhaps a different plan, but less relief requested, and we can see if that might get approval.
Yeah, we usually don't make suggestions about what you can do.
We shouldn't be building his house for him.
No, I realize that. I just, yeah, you know, I was just, yeah, maybe I didn't understand that when I was in the town and requested, I could do it myself, but I guess I need more
And
supplemental.
do you have any sort of floor plans that show what that garage is? Because, I mean, to label it as a garage on a survey and then to say, but it's not actually a garage, it's a bedroom and a laundry room. Is the building department aware it's a bedroom and a laundry room? Been approved? I mean, you added an additional bedroom to a house.
No, I didn't add it. That was there before.
But that's what I mean. We'll have to check the certificate of occupancy and check with Chris on this, whether or not that's even allowed to be a bedroom in there.
He said that was perfectly fine.
Okay, well, we'll confirm that with him.
How many bedrooms are in the house?
Pardon me?
How many bedrooms do you have?
There's 2 upstairs, that's all.
I think it would be helpful if we had a CO
For the
whole property.
We have.
I mean, there is a CO.
Yeah,
We just
I think
bought it.
there's a copy of it.
Okay.
It would be very helpful.
All right.
Would you like us to adjourn for all purposes?
Yeah, let's adjourn it and I'll come back next month.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn case number 3096 for all purposes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We're going to move on to have a happy holiday.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Was there anybody here who's waited to talk about that application?
Yes, there is
Oh,
a member
sorry.
of the audience that would like to speak.
Absolutely.
Carol Reed, on that application. Carol Reed is coming in. trying to switch her in. At least she's, hold on one moment.
I mean, all she was concerned about was the pool, so that's a moot point at this point.
Yeah.
Well, she'd like to speak. Hold on. Let me see if I can get her. Yeah, she's coming in.
I'm here.
Thank you, Carol.
Hi. So I'm Carol Reed. I'm the next door neighbor. I'm the adjacent neighbor on Jennings. My husband and I are also within the radius of notice property owners on Hildreth, which is where we live. I had spoken to Andy, and overwhelmingly I would say welcome, and I want always to be a good neighbor, and I don't want to be in Andy's business. Having said that, the configuration of the pool in relationship to the house on Jennings at 61 Jennings is just sort of untenable. It's 14.3 from the property line to the water's edge. It's also, I can't, as a property owner next door, really abide the idea that there's going to be a property with a pool abutting up to the house. I'm concerned just about the general site plan at this point. I had told Andy, and I stand by the fact that I would applaud the front porch, and I would leave it to the ARB to sort of oversee appropriate materials there. But my concern is the pool, my concern is the garage, and the 2 sheds. So 3 accessory structures, none of which are conforming, and a garage which would be prominent even as an attached garage to the primary structure in a neighborhood where almost all, I think with the exception of one, almost all of the garages in that neighborhood are accessory structures set back at the back of the property. So it's not in keeping with the character of the neighborhood to have a prominent front yard garage. And this application as proposed pronounces that feature significantly, reduces the proposed space on the driveway to only 22 feet, which to my mind potentially increases the impact of on-street overnight parking. So there are a number of issues here. If the applicant would like to hold over and proceed with the application for the porch, I would support that. I do believe that if he's entirely reconfiguring the application insofar as it relates to the pool and the sheds, he should have to re-advertise, reapply, because at this point, we can't get a comprehensive sense of what's being requested. And it is a myriad relief affecting almost all corners of the property.
That's a fair point, David. We'll see what Andrew, your plans are evolving to be, but they may need to be re-advertised and reapplied if your variance relief changes.
And what does that mean to
go through the affidavit and notices again, so that everybody understands what variance relief you're requesting.
Okay. Fair enough.
Can we ask, just that we understand the application also? I understand that it's referenced on the survey as a garage. When the garage door is open and it opens to Hildreth Street, it certainly looks like a garage on the inside. And the survey also notes an enclosed porch, but I'm wondering if that enclosed porch is an actually climate controlled space which flows through with the house.
No, it does not.
Okay. So you walk through a non-climate controlled space to get to a bedroom in the garage?
No, you walk through a climate control space, but that is not the enclosed porch that they're talking about. I mean, there's an enclosed porch, but it's not a porch, and the spot for the pool was not part of the enclosed porch.
Okay. Well, as I said, Andy, I want to be a supportive neighbor, and I'd like to see you continue to beautify this property and feel very welcome there. I just want to make sure that it makes sense and that we're not allowing things which are significantly impacting the side and rear yards there.
Right. I mean, you had said that you would support me in everything but the pool, so that was kind of a curveball, but fair enough.
Are there plans to go before the ARB with this? Because I don't think the extension of the garage will float, but that's just what I know from having been on the ARB.
Okay.
Had to go and
Yeah, I thought the procedure I was told was to go to you first and then go to the ARB.
That's probably right. That is right. But I'm just saying,
Well, thank you for that perspective. All right,
Okay,
good.
thank you.
Thanks so much. Have a great holiday.
You too. Have a happy holiday.
Thank you.
David, can you remind me, did we close this for all, did we adjourn this
No,
for all
adjourn
purposes?
for all purposes.
Yeah.
We don't need a motion for that.
Okay, so can I have a motion to adjourn?
Application for all purposes.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Okay, so we're moving on to case number 3098, Apogee Building Company LLC, 10 Center Street. Is the applicant?
Yes,
Thank you.
Kevin Wells is coming in.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
I can't see you though.
Yeah, I'm trying to get,
And could you just verify, are you the owner of this property?
I am the managing member of the LLC and the contract vendee. So we have not closed on the property yet. So I'm applying as contract vendee with the permission of the current homeowner.
Is that notated in the file?
And we need that paperwork, David. We don't have an agent.
Yes,
I had the homeowner
updated
contact.
checklist.
I'm sorry. I had the homeowner contact the village in writing, giving me and the LLC permission to apply on his behalf, or however the procedure works.
Yeah, that did not make it into our packet.
But do you have it?
I don't have that. All I have is the application signed by Kevin Wells as agent.
Is it okay for us to proceed, David?
Yes. It's okay to proceed. It's
Go
not
ahead,
a
David.
issue for the public. If we don't have that, then it would have to be withdrawn if they can't provide it.
Okay, go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, so here I am. All right, I got it. So the application we are requesting is currently on the property, there's a variance in place for a 20 by 40 pool, which is 14.7 feet at its closest to the south property line, on the east end going to 15.6 feet on the west end, and that span is for a 20 by 40 foot pool. The application that we are requesting, and I don't know where it got lost in translation, but we are not requesting relief for 2 setbacks. So somewhere in the application, it said that we're requesting 2 feet of relief in front yard setback.
We don't have the front yard setback.
Oh, you don't have, okay.
What is the front yard setback?
The front yard setback, it's a corner lot. So we have 50 feet for accessory structure on both front yard setbacks, on Center Street and on Corrigan Street. I'm just going to turn my light up a little bit. Sorry.
How far
So
is the pool
Is
from
that what the
Center Street?
measurement is from the street to the edge of the pool on your survey?
I'm
50
sorry,
feet?
Dan.
It doesn't show 50 feet on the survey.
Unfortunately, there was a red line on there showing the accessory setback of 50 feet, which is required, and it didn't print on this particular copy when I printed it. I don't know why, but on the record, I will state that front yard setback on the north side of the pool off of Center Street meets the 50-foot setback requirement.
Well, can you submit the survey with the red line on it to show us that?
I can resubmit, but again, like I said, that I will go on the record that we are not requesting any relief from that. That will be to code, and the only relief that we are requesting is the south side setback of 5 feet. So it would be 15 feet from the required 20. But again, we're improving what's existing now, because right now you have 40 feet of pool that's roughly 14.7 to 15.6 feet. Now we're only proposing that you have 18 feet of pool, 15 feet. So it's improving what's there. The total square footage of the requested relief is 90 square feet.
Everything else complies, the house complies in every way with front yard and side yard setbacks?
Correct. Everything else is complying. This is the only relief that we're requesting.
Why don't you just put the pool in a way that complies with setbacks?
I mean, the only way that we can do it, if you look at the proposed survey, if we were to turn this pool and have it go east-west, we just don't have enough room from the detached garage to the covered patio. We would be like maybe 3 feet off the garage and then a couple feet off the rear patio of the house. It just didn't sit right. It sits a lot better this way. You know, obviously everybody would love to have a 20 by 40 foot pool. And again, you know, we're not asking for that. We're not asking for any front yard relief, and we are improving what's currently approved. And there's a variance in place for on the existing pool.
Why not just, yeah, go ahead. Why not just take the spa out?
I mean,
side of the pool.
That's not the side of the pool that's encroaching on the, you know, that's not what's requesting the relief. You know, if we were to take the spa out, you know, where that north side of that pool is within the 50-foot setback off of Center Street. So that's not what's affecting.
Right, but if the spa was removed, then you could slide the pool towards Center Street and comply with your rear yard setback.
Are you saying he could make the pool smaller?
Well, you could make the pool smaller, or you could actually detach the spa and put it on the side of the pool. Well, I guess overall, Kevin, the question is whether or not you can comply with the setback, because the argument that when you're building a brand new house and starting from scratch, that you're somehow, improving the pool setback is just not really a strong argument when you're starting with basically a vacant piece of land.
I understand that. You know, and again, the property is 100 feet wide. So we have a 50-foot setback off of Center Street, and we have a 20-foot setback off the property line. So that would leave us with 30 feet either way. And obviously, you know, I swim, I grew up swimming. I would ideally love to have a 20 by 40 foot pool, but that's not going to happen. And I just feel like, you know, a 30-foot pool is, you know, really a major downside for myself. And that's what we could get is 30 feet, regardless of what we do with spa, no spa. You know, 100 minus 50 minus 20 is 30 feet.
Hey, David?
Yes.
When you do a tear down like this, where they have an existing variance, you know, the variance goes with the property. But if you're starting all over, does that existing variance still in effect, or does it go away?
It would be for the plan that was approved by that variance. If they have an existing variance for the pool in its current location, they could reconstruct that pool in that location pursuant to that variance. But that variance, you can't take that variance and move the pool around the property without going and getting a different relief.
Okay, thank you.
We give them this variance?
I have not seen a copy of this or the variance.
Kevin, could you provide a copy of the variance?
I could, yeah. I would just have to get that from the building department. This was this property was formerly currently Joe Romanowski, the former mayor's house. So he
It doesn't matter who lived there.
Oh no, I'm just letting you know. I mean, he's the one that obtained the variance.
Julia, do you have any questions, or do any other board members have questions?
No, I'd like to see these questions that have been posed be answered. Because I do feel like we're we're doing some maneuvering without actually having the documents in front of us.
Sure. What documents do you need, Julie?
I'd like to see the variance. I'd like
Okay.
to see the original paperwork. I mean, all of those things, Kevin, end up being distractions to
Okay,
us just being able to consider what you're asking us.
I understand. Absolutely, I'm happy to provide.
And the survey with the setback, with the 50-foot setback.
Sure, right,
Right.
correct.
It's clearly marked.
You got it.
Okay,
If
so
the copy doesn't print, redo the copy so we can see it.
Understood, understood. I realized it when I was like handing it in, and I apologize.
okay, do we want to, Kevin, do you want us to adjourn this for all purposes right now?
Yeah, is there any, I mean, once I provide this paperwork, how do you guys, can I get a, kind of take everyone's temperature on how you guys feel about requesting this relief?
Not now.
I can't give you an opinion at this point. I can't
Okay.
give you anything at this
We can
point.
watch a work session and get the material in, but we don't have anything to work from really in a funny way.
Okay, I understand. When would that, when would you guys like me to submit the requested documents?
Work
Just-
session 19th of January. Before that, you can.
Yeah, it has to make it in the Thursday by noon before the work session.
And we
No.
said earlier that that was January 14th
Yeah.
to be available for us to talk about it at the work session.
Got it.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
So we're going to have a motion to adjourn case number 3098 for all purposes.
So moved.
Second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Merry Christmas, everybody. and a Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy New
Holidays.
Year, happy Hanukkah. Thank you.
Have a great night.
Oh, yeah.
So that ends this meeting.